What's going on, everybody? Welcome to tonight's broadcast of the ACL. This is week 4A, and we've made it. TDS is the final week of the regular season, and it will be our first 8 eliminations today and tomorrow. 4 going out right now in the lower end of those second-tier GSL brackets, and 4 going out tomorrow as we qualify our last teams for the playoffs and simultaneously eliminate 4 more. I'm Gordo. I'm joined by TDS, and we have got ourselves one of those elimination matches here today. It's Ember Foxes taking on Zero Animosity.
Yeah, two teams that sadly I feel like for a lot of people the expectations were around this mark where they would be fighting out for relegation to try and secure the last few spots for the playoffs. And I think we've seen good things coming out of both teams. If I don't remember wrong, I think Zero Animosity was one of the teams that were able to take a couple of games from tough competition, but they did FF at the end, the last few matches. So, or actually the last match, not the last few, the last match. So not the most ideal way to try and get into this spot, but certainly you still have a chance to try and get into here. And I think, or last match, no, the last 2 matches. One of those, but it's still a spot where you're going to be fighting for your life. You need to be able to take it out here really effectively, and for how they lost last week, I think a 2-1 loss for Zero Animosity still gives them hope that they can still go above Ember Foxes.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think there's reasons to be hopeful for both teams, and there's reasons to be doubtful about both teams.
Yep.
We'll get into those as we introduce the starting lineups. Let's kick things off with Ember Foxes, who we do believe will be starting on the blue side. This is Red's Award. I believe their jungler will go by Wonton, Sim, Franco, and Slime from top to bottom.
That's a good name. But yeah, a roster that I think had a lot of good things that could come together. They could really try and be at the very least contesting for a much earlier seed, but overall I think there's potential that has been left without really accomplishing much. I'm always looking at their mid lane, at the mid lanes for teams. I think Ember Foxes had a really interesting mid laner, and I think that if they can play around their strong points like their mid lane, they probably can try and do a little bit more. But against them is a certain amount of Animosity roster that has been going against top rosters and being able to fight against them very well as well.
Yeah, and this is a team that, well, first of all, has already overperformed their original pool, right? They started the
Yeah.
season as a pool 5 team, rated 5.2 on average. They qualified for this second stage as pool 4 after successfully defeating Komodo to move
Yep.
higher up in their initial ranking GSL. And then even after that, they took a game off of Prosperity as well. So lots of stuff to be excited about there, but they do drop to Mint Gaming when they first meet each other here in this final GSL group. And frankly, that is where it really matters here. So the loss there definitely setting them a little bit back. And the fact that they were not able to defeat the 5th seed Mint mean that they now do have to kind of fight for their lives here against Zero Animosity, and then either have to get a rematch against Mint or a matchup against Sin Eternal Season, be able to eventually make their way to the playoffs. So started to slip away a little bit, but I definitely share some of your excitement for this team. I think they've overperformed where they've been rated throughout most of the competitions they've entered so far, both this ACL and last, and have gotten a lot of hype from their coach Linzu on all these players, especially Slime at support. Heard a lot of really good things about this guy's shot calling and the kind of macro knowledge he brings to the table.
Yeah, any addition to the pool of supports is always going to be welcome. So certainly having Slime being able to, at the very least, step it up a little bit more is going to be ideal. And then obviously following up on the ideal of Ember Foxes, the opposites are always great, but you need to follow up those opposites with a little bit more spice onto yourself. And I think that Ember Foxes still have it in them. They still have a little bit of time as well to be able to qualify. They just win today and tomorrow, and they are in.
Yeah, so let's check out what we've got. It's true for the other side as well. It's Zero Animosity, a little bit on the opposite end of the spectrum here. This is Albino Spino, Eon Crystal, I Samuel, Inferno Dan, and Z Score. And this team comes in also as a Pool 5 team, but they end up coming into this GSL ranked 6th after losing to GCS via FF, like you brought on up. But despite having not actually won a series yet this ACL, they have taken games off of Galaxy, Lotus, and now Sin Eternal Season as well. But those are just individual games. They have yet to be able to close out a BO3.
Yeah, if we have the NECL the NECL format, they probably would have been a much higher seed than what they are right now. But
Yeah.
realistically and sadly for them, individual games does not make the full story here. And I think this roster has a lot to give because they have clearly shown that they can fight against tougher opponents. Like taking games against the teams that they have taken games off, it's something to really shout out. The problem is that since you cannot win series with just one game, they are really not that good at closing it out. And I think that for what this team brings, I feel like they just need to have a little bit more cohesion in how they end up closing out some of their games because they can be better than what they are showing so far. And I think they know that as well by the fact that they have been able to take games against a lot of strong rosters.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, hearing it now, the mid laner is E Samuel, so we'll do our best
Okay.
with that one. I was wondering, I wanted to see, is it like, could it be a different pronunciation? I took the safe route, ended up wrong on that one, but that's okay. We now know going forward. And yeah, very interested to see this Zero Animosity team now up against a lower rated opponent compared to some of the ones that they have dropped to so far. And of course, like that GCS Challengers team, probably the first matchup they had where they would
They
have been
have.
favored on paper, and they don't actually get to play the match. So very interested to see what they'll be able to show us here today. This is a team that has produced some really solid upsets before and has retooled a little bit in the carry positions over the course of this split, adding in Inferno Dan, and then also very late adding in Samuel here, who is now going to be their starting mid laner. And that change, I think kind of threw a lot off for this squad coming at the beginning of the season. At least that's what their coach was able to share with me when I spoke to them earlier today. So see if they've gotten their feet under them a little bit more as the season has gone on, and if they can try to turn around their season starting right now, because this is the last opportunity they're going to get to do it.
Yeah, certainly. And if you want to start at any point, probably the best opportunity is when you're about to be eliminated and you can save yourself. So certainly, whatever they can pull off here, it's going to be ideal enough to try and keep themselves alive for a little bit longer. But like you're mentioning, changing carries, trying to adapt a little bit onto that idea of how they want to play and what probably works best for their team is what Animosity is trying to look for. And if they can make it work out here against an opponent that I think it's going to be accessible for them realistically in terms of seeds, in terms of pools, in terms of everything like that, then this is when they need to step it up like they probably know they can.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're going to be keeping our eyes on what they can bring to the table here today, and be getting into draft before too long. I'm very curious to see. I got to speak to both coaches earlier today, and both really shared a big emphasis on team play. They both want to be, greater collections than the individuals that are on the teams, and that's frequently an objective for a lot of these squads. But it's
Yeah.
often, yeah, it's interesting to have these kind of lower seeded teams, but who do have formal coaches who are trying to build a more kind of macro identity upwards rather than oftentimes there's kind of a hard divide between the really high rated teams, the NACL or near NACL teams that have the full coaching structure and everything. And then there's groups of players just playing together as friends that represent some of the lower seeded teams. These guys kind of riding the line between the two. And so far not finding the success they want, but I think both have kind of scratched the surface of it a little bit through some of the showings they've been able to put together previously.
Yeah, and this is a good metric to really start out with certain things because, like, at the end of the day, yes, you may have some of the idea in terms of the infrastructure, the idea in terms of how you want to play and how you want to play certain things. But when most players, most coaches are essentially starters in how a lot of this tier 3 tournament realm or tournament environment is going to work like, they need to first get their feet wet to really start going with things like this. And I think Animosity and Ember Foxes, they have a little bit of experience, but when you look at the higher up rosters, right, the Citadels of the world, the Supernovas of the world here in the ACL as well as in the NACL, their players have gone through a lot so far in tier 3, and they have already pretty much delved really deep into the water of what is tier 3. So I think that experience difference, the amount of time put into it, and also a little bit of adaptation does make a big difference in how they are approaching a lot of things. And I think for both Zero Animosity and Ember Foxes, this level of experience really makes a difference in the long run. Maybe not right now, but in coming ACLs, in coming NACL OQs that are about to come up as well, that's where you see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely here. And with that said, we can take a look around some of the rest of the league while we wait to get started here. Already
Yep.
a couple of eliminations have come on through. Travelers FF against Galaxy. It does take them to elimination, so they will be saying goodbye to the ACL now. And Novosphere Gaming Myth as well, dropping in 2-0 fashion to Komodo previously. They will also be eliminated there. So 2 out of our 4 eliminations for today already settled for. There is this match, and then there's Calamity Black against GCS Challengers being played off stream. So we will be keeping an eye on those results as well as they come in, and see who will be moving on to that decider match over in Group 2.
I do want to
This
say,
one, go ahead.
I want to say quickly, I'm glad the fact that for this sort of ACL format, like we realistically have only one FF out of all the all the matchups. The only elimination FF is only one, which I'm glad, because before there were
Yeah.
more possibilities for that to happen. So I'm glad that this format really showing that even until the last second, there's still chances. And Travelers FF both their series, so it's not like they FF the last one; they FF both. So they weren't going to even play this last one, even if they because they lost the previous one. So I think a huge improvement compared to previous splits is the fact that everyone ended up playing all their matches at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good that we haven't been mathematically eliminating teams weeks ago
Yeah.
like we have in some formats past. So always really great to have that. Great to have every match matter. And this match can be no exception, as this match is going to send one of these teams home for the split. I have to wait and see you guys again in fall ACL and in the upcoming OQs, perhaps, as the bands underway. Yorick, an interesting pick that has been pretty big for Albino Spino, going to get banned on away here by the Ember Foxes. Akali taken off the board as well, directed over towards Sim.
This feels like one of the first times in ban where we see a lot more focus towards the top side of the map than the bots than the mid lane. Because I think that more frequently it's mid lane jungle the ones that take away the focus. This time 3 top lane champs plus Talia and Syndra I think makes complete sense. But this has been a champion that we've seen permaban so frequently, and now finally Pantheon available, the Wukong, the trifecta open up here coming in, and the Corki as well. They are running through with their picks. Surprised no Barras though.
Yeah, Brave New Patch, by the way, Xin Zhao nerfed,
Yep.
Trundle a little bit nerfed, so some of that jungle being broken up a little bit. Of course, we do still see Pantheon Wukong immediately, so it's not changing things too much, at least not from the perspective of these teams. Of course, those are the champions that go untouched in the patch, so not a surprise that they remain kings of the jungle here. There's that Ziggs that got overbuffed a couple patches ago, still sitting there in that
Yep.
overbuff category. That champion is too good. I don't know if you guys have gotten to see some of the APA Twitter clips of him just like one-shotting Zeds as they go to ult him, but it's a little bit gross. The extra AP ratio on the minefield definitely makes things very difficult if Ziggs is able to capture you on top of those. And that will be an early pick here for the Ember Foxes. That Corki snap up, by the way, will mean that this is, I think, Franco's first
Interesting.
series where he didn't get his hands on the Corki. He's played a lot of it this split, but it will be stolen away by Inferno Dan.
Yeah, and if it goes bot lane, obviously there's still a chance for a mid lane counter. The Victor coming in first is surprising to say the least. I'm surprised also Seer has not yet been given hovered at all with how powerful the champion in general feels like. It's going to be the Leona taking away, and now a little bit more focus towards that bot side. I think Leona, Alistar, Nautilus all look to be potentially good champions for the 6 to try and get a lockdown going down there. Now, also another choice would be to potentially go for something that can follow up with a poke down there as well. Something maybe like a much more from a safe distance kind of support, like the Karma, for example. But we'll have to wait and see what the side of Ember Foxes can opt into. The Asir ends up being banned away, and they will need a lot of physical damage on the side of Ember Foxes as well. With double mages in the mid and bot lane, you need a little bit more oomph in terms of physical damage in the top side.
Play take it away as well. The Aurora, something that I noticed still on the table, is something that Esamwell has really shown us already, and there it is getting hovered, so might end up locking that one in.
Not
It's
bad.
another nice, powerful flanking team fighting tool for the Zero Animosity team. Ember Foxes, meanwhile, with 2 mages locked in, need to look for a little bit of physical damage here. You got to feel from the top lane. Pantheon will give a little bit of that from the jungle, but I think you need at least a little bit more. I would not be super thrilled to see some kind of AP tank or something get locked in at this stage.
Yeah, and is it going to be now? I think the obvious choices end up being like things like the Jax, maybe a Fiora in case you want to like counter it really effectively. But it's kind of difficult to look into what the top lane is going to be, especially blind here, because you don't know what's going to be the top lane from the side of Zero Animosity. There could be the Aurora, yes, but there's still an opportunity that is just flex around into the mid lane, and you now have to blind your top laner here. The safe choice would be Renekton or Gnar, but I just don't think that that would be the kind of boom that I'm expecting for them to have.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind something like an Aatrox here either, as a little bit of a
Aatrox, yeah.
flanker, as a little bit of additional peel tools. I mean, a tank is okay here because you're not really expecting too many true tanks from the Zero Animosity side. The only problem is if you pick a
True.
tank here, you do open yourself up to the risk that Zero Animosity just slams something like the Scion. So I like the Renekton here, and Zero Animosity going right over towards potential Ornn here. I mean, pick your poison, right? You could go the Cho'Gath, you could go the Ornn, you could go the Gragas, you could go whatever
The Scion.
floats your boat there, and anything would have been a big problem if there wasn't some kind of sustained AD DPS coming in from the top lane. So again, nice selection on the Renekton. I think well called there, TDS. And now what can Zero Animosity go for? It will, in fact, be that Ornn, giving them a little bit of additional scaling power and a little bit of additional engage as well to go along with this Wukong, Aurora, Leona. Lots of non-committal engage on this team.
Yeah, and the super long range value that brings as well, because one of the main things that the Six plays with is his range advantage. But when you have such a long range for ultimates to lock down a target, like the Leona, like the Ornn, that just makes it so that the Six has to be way more careful about his positioning, and also how much he can commit for certain fights, or how much does Ember Focus want to commit for certain fights. Because Zero Animosity doesn't really need to commit for a fight for them to start it. Like, they can play the Ornn ultimate from a safe distance. If it doesn't connect, disengage, you still have another tool, and the same can be said for other ultimates. But for Ember Foxes, they have to commit. If they want to go in, they have to commit, because there's no way to escape. If the Rel goes in, there's no way to try and go back. If the Renekton goes in, there's not a lot of ways to go back. If the Pantheon goes in with ultimate, there's not a lot of ways to go back. So there is way too much committal engage and way too little opportunity to try and escape in case they commit badly. And I think that's the biggest difference between comms here.
Yeah, definitely. So Ember Foxes, once they get these fights started, they are going to be finishing them one way or the other. Some real nice, powerful reset opportunity on the Victor there, and the single target burst necessary to be able to get that kind of first reset. But beyond that, I mean, they are going to kind of run out of juice in the tank. So Albino Spino can be really effective in the front line here. If he's able to absorb some critical abilities and avoid going down, can really open up a lot of space for the likes of Eon Crystal to be able to go in for these engages and be at not at as much risk of getting blown up or taken down. Z-Score going to be in that category as well. He's like more off-tank champions. If a full rotation isn't quite available, the Ember Foxes might find it a little bit more difficult to be able to finish off their target, and that can really open up for Zero Animosity to take control over the fight and use the more reliable DPS that they have available, like this Corki, to be able to close things out.
Also, another problem they may face later on is the fact that they have no straight up AD carry. So having no late game damage dealer in the form of an AD carry can make things a little bit risky, because that you're mainly depending on two magical damage dealers to try and deal with everything. And the problem is that eventually Ornn will be able to tank a lot of that damage. Maybe not a huge front of it, but a good part out of that damage is going to be able to tank it. And then also you're going to be facing a Corki that can shred essentially everyone on the side of Ember Foxes, because he's going to keep on scaling and find the damage value things to his items. And I think Corki sometimes goes undervalued in the way that he can get towards that late game, and he will be hitting really strongly with some of the burst potentials that the side of Zero Animosity does have. So I feel like Ember Foxes really need to get the game going, try and get this Renekton spiking as early as possible, and then also have the Pantheon be as active, because there's a champion that we see consistently banned, and if it's banned for a reason, it's because he's going to have a lot of impact in the game. And I hope that they can take advantage of that on the side of Ember Foxes.
Definitely, especially in game one of Fearless here. I think both these junglers coming off the table, going to challenge both of them, I think, to dive a little bit deeper. I think the player with the more non-traditional champion pool is Ember Fox, is Wonton. He's shown stuff like the Kha'Zix, like the Rek'Sai, like the Nocturne throughout the course of this season. That Rek'Sai in particular, something they've drawn a lot of bans on, and be very interested to see if that ends up coming through in this series. And fact that Xin Zhao is a little nerfed, maybe a little bit less popular. The Trundle's still drawing bans, but that is also a little nerfed. Maybe going to not be the #1 pick in all situations, or maybe just going to stay on that ban list. Either way, it's going to incentivize both of these players to dive a little bit deeper into that pool, and we'll see if there is some new territory from Eon Crystal that we haven't gotten to see yet this split, as they have kind of stuck to the more traditional champions throughout most of the series so far. And this is one of those times where the patch is going to throw a little bit of a wrench into that game plan.
Yeah, one of our first chances to actually see how much the patch did change things in terms of not only the bans, but how they are going to approach most of the game. I think for now, at the very least, looks pretty standard. But one of the things, or a couple of things that really jump to my mind is the lack of attention for the barriers, the lack of attention for the buy and the Asir, even going second round ban phase the Asir, which is surprising for me. And then also the attention towards certain top laners. I don't think there was a big buff in terms of top laners in this patch, so I'm kind of curious that they have so much focus towards them.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just still the same old top lane. I think the biggest change is that Rumble's win rate no longer dives off a cliff when you pick him on red side. They did give that little fix on.
Oh no, Rumble is still strong.
Yeah, that should just make Rumble a both sides pick rather than more of the pure blue side pick that he had been.
What could go wrong with that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, some Varus adjustments as well. Q damage goes down, W damage goes up later, but it's kind of more targeted towards that lethality build. So going to be maybe a little bit less Varus prio than we've been traditionally used to. But other than that, I don't see too many, earth-shattering changes in the patch notes to be.
You're not excited about the
Nut? Of course, our new junglers, our new friends in the jungle, of course, Nautilus.
Yeah, I was going to mention, are you not excited about the Nut goal? No.
The Nongle? I'm excited. I mean, listen, as someone who played in season 2, I remember Nongle, and it was fun. It was a good time. So I'm not too afraid for him to come back. I do find it interesting that he clears with E now instead of with W. But I guess that's just, clear speed's everything these days.
Well, I think I've seen a lot of junglers just essentially clearing by virtue of being junglers, so not necessarily something surprising at that, but certainly going to be a nice addition. I was always excited to see a change up in the jungle that way. I know junglers hate it, but I'm not a jungler, so I don't really care. And it's going to be exciting seeing how much it changes.
Yeah, and it's people are sick of stuff just getting shoehorned into the jungle role. That I understand, but it's okay to have different things.
We've had it worse. Remember G Taric or Brom Taric? Yes. Or Brom G, sorry.
Yes, I mean all of those were things. I do remember them. Better to be able to get away from those, I think, than
exactly. There's worse things. So for now, I think I'm fine with it.
Sure. I could see that, and not anything we're going to end up seeing in this game #1 either. Still sticking to the same old traditional selections, at least for the time being. So just have to wait and see what does present itself later on in the draft. Continue to check out this bottom lane as well. I think opportunities to go aggressive early for both of these bot lane setups with the Ziggs and the Corki. The Ziggs going to be able to keep its range a little bit more, but also that damage up front is just so much. And the Corki's squishy enough that if Slime is able to find a nice little engage angle on the Rel, could see them exchanging blows early in the game. And then, of course, this Pantheon opens up so many gank paths, especially early on with that targeted stun, that the Corki certainly could be a viable target for that one. Could see him mid or bot. We'll find out, though, as we are on to Summoner's Rift for game #1. Ember Foxes versus Zero Animosity kicking off right now.
And it's going to start with the best thing about the early game, staring contest, because they're not looking to try and invade. I will say, though, obviously, this is the sort of series that I'm expecting a little bit of a more conservative approach in terms of the early game, because obviously it's an elimination game, although I say that and immediately they start fighting.
Yeah, starting to brawl here. Already going to be Eon Crystal trying to chase forward onto Wonton. Wonton will lose about half their HP and will be on the back foot for that reason. Sim adding in a little bit of fire there. Wonder if they have the mana flow band. If they do, I think they've already got 2 stacks. That's not too shabby. Bot lane's rising on up to see if any action is going to break out. Neither end up committing to it, but the ward is secured by Eon Crystal, so Zero Animosity going to have that little bit of extra information to start things off.
Value always to get that bit of info, especially when you're playing a matchup where as the Wukong, I don't expect to see as much movement or as many movements as the Pantheon in the early game, just because you do want to get your ultimate before anything like that happens. So certainly having that sort of information is important, but also there's a pretty quick clear from the Pantheon, just making it so that there's not going to be that big fear as well.
Absolutely. So going to be moving their way down bottom. They get a little bit of vision on towards Eon Crystal on the opposite side too, just to track what's going on. So both junglers going to have some degree of awareness about each other, although there is definitely going to be a clear speed advantage to Eon Crystal. Moving their way up to the Krugs, then going to loop back for the red buff to try to dodge out on that vision as best as they can. Inferno Dan lost about half his HP in the bottom lane on one of those early trades. You got to believe that's Slime finding one of those early stuns and setting up for Franco.
I think it was just a bouncing bomb hitting him a couple of times, more so than the Slime finding him, but still level 2 advantage for Inferno Dan, also able to push the wave in this position here, but you know that there's always that slight opportunity exactly like that, and immediately re-engage though.
Yeah, nice bounce under the turret from Franco, going to force Z-Score to take extra damage, but shouldn't be enough to actually be able to close out on any kills, and Slime does take a fair bit of response damage from Inferno Dan, so still got these trades ongoing. Another nice combo from Franco, though, keeping those health bars low. That is where you want to be as the further ranged aspect of this bottom lane. Both junglers starting to finish up their first clears here, likely both going to be going for this bottom scuttle crab TDS.
Yeah, it looks like both of them want to try and make it a little bit of a fight down there, so it's important to see who has the control in both bot lane and mid lane. It looks like as of now, Zero Animosity has a better opportunity thanks to mid lane push from the Aurora, but there's always a slight opportunity to really try and go find an angle to support your jungler and get the better control out of the attempt at the crab. But it really looks like it's going to be a fight for it down there.
Certainly does. Clearing out waves, getting things ever closer. And they will not be able to get up and support on the side of Ember Foxes, so it will be going on over to Eon Crystal. No problems there, and actually an opportunity at a double scuttle here. Does look like the call from Wonton is just to give that one up, recognizing that the Wukong is just a little bit faster on the clear. Although Eon Crystal not even necessarily going for it, just moving back for the respawned birds. So they might handshake this a little bit. Red's Ward did get a successful push in, so is going to be able to catch this out. The solo laners will both be up here to support Wonton.
Yeah, the value of the solo lane up there, and I do think there was a slight opportunity for it, but I do think Eon Crystal was... Oh, wait, Inferno.
Nice knock in onto Inferno Dan, and that's just first blood right there for Franco. Now extending the trade up top is Red Sword. He's going to be able to win this out in the extended trade. Ember Foxes, very nicely done in the bottom lane.
Yeah, and that's a big mistake coming in there by Inferno Dan, because he not only gets pushed back into the 6 bomb range, but also did not use his barrier more so to try and survive for the longer amount of damage. So he just ends up being caught out of position, bursted out in that place, and made it so that now the 6 starts the lane with a amplifying tomb, the lost chapter, and then also hasn't used his teleport, so now he can even go for another trade, get a big advantage, and then come back with teleport like nothing happened.
Yeah, Slime coming over mid to support Sim and just getting this wave shoved on in. Did just get a successful trade onto Eastsamwell as well. Be able to keep that push going, get themselves a nice safe recall, and actually going to interrupt the recall of Eastsamwell there as well. So they're going to be a little bit longer before they're going to be able to get back in the lane, and Sim should be able to get their own lost chapter off of this.
Yeah, Burley's getting a good utility in the mid lane with this, making it so that your wave clear is going to be that much better. And there's something also we didn't mention much in the pre-draft, but the wave clear coming in from Ember Foxes is going to be really, really good. Like, they are going to destroy waves before they even reach the turret, so they really need something like a Baron buff or a really strong start at the game. Oh, wait, C-score.
Oh, there's going to be another stun coming through.
Oh, great.
Get knocked back in by the satchel charge, and they're trying to dump everything into this Leona. They will finally be able to find that last bit of damage. Slime is low, though, trying to retreat, does have the space to prevent a Nimbus strike from connecting, and Eon Crystal too little too late, cannot get any revenge for their support. Ember Foxes get another one for 0.
Yeah, the satchel to the back was so good, well placed by Franco there once again, and 2 times now setting up for the kills for his team. Really nice setup they are able to find. As good trade up there, but probably not going to turn into anything. The Scuttle Grab though did go in the favor of the Wukong, and it looks like maybe First Dragon could also be something that they are looking for here, although there are still 3 members strong down there in the bot side.
Trying to clear things out, going for a reset, so it might actually be that Dragon going the way of Zero Animosity.
Yeah.
Still, the early kill gold going to net them a lasting advantage, and we'll see if there is going to be some sort of swap coming up towards the Grubs here. So far, not looking like it, as Franco is actually still in lane right now. We'll be able to clear out the wave, no problem, but curious to see how Ember Foxes look to convert onto objective number 2 with Zero Animosity taking this Dragon.
Well, having the advantage of the teleport makes it so that even if he is late, he's still going to find some way to really get onto the play. And the important part here, more so than just arriving there, is how you arrive. And if, for example, they have the advantage on the side of Zero Animosity to really go for the grabs, but the 6 is solo pushing onto the turret, I think that you take that more times than just trying to contest the grab. So it's really important to see how they are going to try and play around that as well. But having this teleport advantage in 3 lanes, essentially, is going to be really, really important for Ember Foxes as well.
EP towards the top side from Franco, so they are looking at this swap, sending a Red Sword down towards the bottom lane. A late recall from Inferno Dan and Z-Score. They are going to take a little while to get here, although there's still 20 seconds to go until the spawn. Just keeping our eyes on how this battle over the waves is going to go. The mid lane wave going to crash in. Isam well up a little bit far. Slime going to try to punish for this. Gets the stun. Here comes Wonton from the side. They have Eon Crystal for the backup, but pushed back yet again. Now looking for extra. They find the stun, but it's all onto the clone. Don't want to blow too many
5 members strong
here. TP being channeled. This is Red Sword getting involved. So all 10 players up on this top side. Zero Animosity on the back foot.
Yeah, the 10 players were already here, and I think it's all on the move for the grubs, but also try and see if they can find anything. They sadly cannot force it a little bit more to try and make the play happen, but they didn't commit anything big either. It was only the teleport from the Renaction. They still have 2 teleports that they can use to try and push the bot lane wave, and even then, when you look at the waves in the map, everything is in a good spot for the side of Ember Foxes. So this was a pretty comfortable objective they are able to get without much contest, and also not going to lose absolutely anything at all on the rest of the map.
Yeah, I love the shift from Sim towards the bottom lane as well, so they don't actually have to expend Sim's TP. They just move Red Sword into mid, keep catching all these waves, keep all the pushes going. And yeah, I mean, it's quite the waste of time for Zero Animosity to send all 5 members up towards the top side and get nothing done for it.
Yeah, they had to use more attention up there without really finding anything. And the state of the game is that right now the gold lead not only being more in favor of the side of Ember Foxes, but also the objective that the side of Zero Animosity gets is not really going to make a difference when you compare it to something like the 6 being able to push down turrets and take down objectives super quickly, and also the Renaction being an actual factor in terms of split push. Because when you look at what Zero Animosity has as far as split push goes, it's not like they have a huge value. Maybe the Aurora with the odd attacks, but that's about it, really. There's no like actual split pusher that can make use of anything, of any of the attention on the other side of the map compared to what Ember Foxes has.
Yeah, really strong start for Ember Foxes here, securing themselves those grubs. That is going to make their push much more effective. And now just getting back everybody into their traditional lane setups. 2 minutes to go until the next dragon, and then sitting pretty comfortably on what they've been able to build out in these early stages. Far from over, but can't have too many criticisms about how they've played out this early game. They've been able to secure themselves at least a slight advantage pretty much everywhere, and Zero Animosity not able to piece themselves out together anything on the proactive side with that slight early clear lead that they did secure for themselves. Now pushes coming in the bottom lane and the top lane and the mid lane, all going to make use of these grubs.
Yeah, they do have an advantage, or not an advantage, but they do have a great late game that they can play with. So even if something goes completely wrong so far, so early on, they still have that backup that in case they reach the 30+ minute mark, they still have a Corki that is going to keep on scaling, or that is going to be a hyper tank, and also the Aurora that will get more damage to be able to burst down squishies early on. It's not like Siggs and Victor will get weaker either, but I do think having that straight up AD carry always will make a difference. That is a really nice position satchel, even if it didn't push away the Corki.
You're trying to disrupt the Valkyrie, see if they can get a trade in a bit more favorable position than they would otherwise. Good trades from Albino Spino in the top lane, who is having probably the best time in lane out of all of the Zero Animosity members so far in this early game. Slime defending this pink ward. Like to see that. They know they have Wonton with the drop coming from the side. Sim getting knocked up, though. It's a nice engage from Eon Crystal, and it will be a clean kill. Sim well able to get out of there without dying to Chaos Storm.
Yeah, really good move they are able to find there. Franco is by himself here.
Wow. Very nicely done on the footwork there. It avoids both the ultimate and the Zenith Blade and just waltzes out of here. It's a trade of flashes.
Oh, wait, here comes Batman.
Wait, it's Wonton trying to get in here onto Z-Score, and all the tools are down. This Leona is done for. Feat of Warfare to Ember Fox's Franco on the board again.
Yeah, it turns out committing everything to try and kill the 6, probably not the most ideal situation when you don't kill the 6 even, and that turns into a really good kill for the side of Ember Foxes and also a dragon. So being able to equal out the dragon tally and also try and find more value for themselves. I'm fine with the trade if Cisco is only going for a flash for flash situation. So if it's flash from the Franco for flash from Cisco, I think that's actually a really good trade for Zero Animosity, because the flash from the 6 is way more valuable than the Leonas. But if you die after that, that's where the play already turns on its head and it's not that valuable anymore.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of an overcommit in hindsight, as that drop comes in from Pantheon, able to find a good punish there.
Yep.
And now going to be a 2-0 and 1 Ziggs. Exactly what you're looking for out of this early game if you are the Ember Foxes. They secure themselves the second dragon as well. As an afterthought, 2 minutes to go on this Rift Herald. And 3 members bot lane. Franco's going to have to be careful here if he tries to approach.
They have to be extra careful because now Franco also has but actually, he doesn't have a bounty, but he has a potential for a bounty, so you don't want to give up a huge amount of gold just yet, especially with how the rest of the map is looking. Like, nothing at all is happening. There's not a big problem. The members are already collapsing down here. So as long as you just control yourself in how you're approaching it, nothing bad will happen for at the very least for now, for the side of Ember Foxes. Also, Herald, probably the next objective they're going to try and look for before trying to force anything else. And having the Herald with the 6 means that any turret that they can try and get can probably double with the amount of damage the 6 has.
For sure. So much extra range on destroying those turrets with the addition of the satchel charge. That is what they want to do with Franco in this early game. The turret plates are going to drop here, so they're not going to end up with too extreme of an advantage thanks to that satchel, but still going to be valuable pressure later on, especially after this Rift Herald spawns on up in another minute. You got to believe that's something that they're going to want to play for. This is actually a very early TP being channeled by Franco just to get on up here, clear out the wave. They're sending Red Sword bot, and the swap will be completed well in advance of the spawn.
Yeah, they really want to try and set it up, but like you're mentioning, maybe a little bit too early to try and force it means that they are essentially committing for the play here. And to a certain degree, once again, they still have to teleport to
over the wall. Wonton thinks he's got Esim well. Does have the backup of Z-Score. Z-Score again, though, flashless. Multiple members converging on his position. All the Forge God comes through, knocks up out of the Pantheon, but Slime's already finished off Z-Score on the backside. Sim has to flash away, does get executed by the long range.
The double knockup.
But Franco has arrived to the scene, throwing through some of these bombs, trying to get that additional damage as Red Sword chases onto the back line. One more immune comes through from Wonton, but Spino will finish him off. Inferno Dan able to escape on the backside, but Red Sword coming back in to regroup with the team, looking for one more stun. Nowhere left to go for Albino Spino as Franco will take him down for a killing spree.
Yeah, Spino was a little bit tanky there, but at the end, they run him down really effectively and he's not able to escape. I think the biggest thing there is Samuel having to blow his ultimate so early on in the fight, meaning that he was essentially going to be a non-factor for the whole duration of it. And then also the fact that even though they find a really good knockup and a couple of good ultimates, they're still lacking a little bit of damage to deal with some of these members. The Corki 2-wide and Power Spike is really where it's going to start shining, and then also the Aurora needs to be present in most of these fights.
And we're not done yet, though. Nobody able to actually get out of the Rift Herald off of that. Plenty of cooldowns down, and everybody coming back out. But Inferno Dan so low here, going to get forced to back off as another Cosmic Starfall comes on across, and that will be controlled to Ember Foxes. Inferno Dan is too low they are going to have to give this one up.
Yeah, that's essentially the Rift Herald pretty comfortably obtained. Also, the Wukong is on the other side of the map, so barely any chance to actually go for it, as Sim going to get it traded here in terms of the health bar, but not a big trade that you have to worry about. And there's no other objectives. So for now, big victory for the side of Ember Foxes, and they can try and threaten a turret as soon as they want to as well.
They get feats off that too. That is their third objective. So rocking the enhanced boots for the foreseeable future. And wow, Red Sword's just been left alone up at this top side. Inferno Dan getting forced back with the low health bar. They just do not have the resources to come up and defend this, and they're going to lose a substantial portion of this turret. Nicely done by Red Sword and by the whole team for keeping the pressure on Inferno Dan after that skirmish. Zero Animosity maybe a little overcommitted to that top side again.
Well, at least they did not lose the whole turret, so all in all, I can stand behind that in the way that they are trying to play it off. But it's a risk, like we were mentioning before. They can lose the side lane because of the amount of pushing power that they have with the 6 and the Renekton as well. And then when you're able to control the side lane like this, it makes attempts at objectives much easier.
Whoa!
You know you can force. Ooh, okay.
There's a
can they kill Sim?
Clips coming through from Z.
Yeah, no flash.
And that solar flare might secure them the kill onto Sim. Doesn't have access to the flash. One more rocket will do it. The smite down from Eon Crystal will be a kill onto Sim and will be a numbers advantage for Zero Animosity. Push it to the bottom lane from Franco. Did secure them the turret. The dragon is up and available. And it is a 3 versus 4 on this bottom side. Both top laners brawling on that lane.
3 versus 4, they do have teleport from Albino. There's no teleport from the rest of the world, so there's a better chance for them to try and obtain this dragon. That being said, Rift Herald down. They have 6. They can give up this dragon. There's no need for the side of Ember Foxes to actually try and fight it because they are way farther ahead. And now this Rift Herald probably getting a second crash and just disengaging. Yep.
Yeah, second crash. This might be a little far up for Slime. Gonna have to crash down. Albino Spino coming in from the collapse. This is going to sacrifice the top turret, but can they get Franco?
Franco?
He flashes back over the wall, trying to get out of between worlds. Gets knocked back by the searing pillar and will be taken down. Slime going to drop as well as another rocket finds its mark. Red Sword throws into the back line with the blast code, but 1 versus 5, 100% going down. Isamuel going to be able to pick up that kill, and it is a 3 for 0. Zero Animosity take the gold lead for the first time this game.
Such a big teamfight win in that situation. Not only finding the most important member in Franco there, but also pushing Sim away so that he could be a non-factor at all in that fight, forcing them into a spot where even Red Sword arrived. There was no way for him to collapse onto the Corki effectively, and that just meant that trying to turn around the fight for the side of Zero Animosity was going to be much more comfortable. This is why I also like their composition, because realistically, if you find these opportunities, these angles, fighting them out is going to be much easier for yourself, because you just need a Ornn ultimate into a Aurora ultimate into a Wukong ultimate, and that's it. The fight feels pretty comfortable after that.
Yeah, it feels like some split calling there from Red Sword all on his own. Both decides to take the top turret instead of roaming down with Albino Spino, but then also tries to take the fight after it's already a little bit over there. So Ember Fox is not able to get themselves a leg to stand on for that fight. Red Sword now potentially getting caught out here. Does get hit by the solar flare. Flashes back away. Try to create the space. Doesn't have dominance. Ooh. Second knockup. Full combo from Isamuel. And down goes the Croc. Red Sword falls and Zero Animosity continue their kill streak. Here comes Slime looking for the engage though. It's an engage from Wonton as well with the Cosmic Starfall. TP being channeled to answer. One target already down between worlds. Trying to slow them up and keep the fight really going. Albino Spino throws out Cole the Forge God just for a little bit of poke, and they both parties will back on away. It's top laner for jungler in the extended trade.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too much commitment at the end there with what they were trying to look for, because that is teleport and Ornn as well down right now. But overall, it's something that you can try and play around with as long as the Ornn is close by. That being said, he still is not going to be a Sankey just yet, and he can die if he's not careful enough.
Slime shorting the stun there, not going to be able to chase for any more. And now going to just be a reset and clear for both sides. Zero Animosity have brought things pretty much back to parity with that fight win earlier, 3 for 0. Pattern we are still seeing play out though. Feels like Zero Animosity constantly committing more members to these plays. Ember Fox is getting a little bit more in terms of push, in terms of farm, but if they take the fights at the bad numbers, then that just gives the gold right back to Zero Animosity.
Yeah, the more fights you take, the better it can kind of go for Zero Animosity in that sense. And obviously, if you win more fights, you're going to get the gold lead back eventually to yourself. So it's not a good plan for the he's out of the bush. It's not a good plan to try and force fights as frequently as possible if you don't have a better angle to force those fights, where I think Zero Animosity has understood that better and has been able to force them out much more effectively thanks to that.
Yeah, we are back to a little bit more of a slower, controlled pace of game. Both of these teams know that elimination is on the line, and neither wants to make these sorts of slip-ups. So far, going to be a very close one between these two crews. Less than 90 seconds to go on Dragon number 4. Zero Animosity could get themselves onto Soul Point if they can secure this one. Otacon, the spawn that both teams have in mind here. More members committed from Ember Foxes as they start to clear out vision.
Yeah, a lot of vision already taken out, a lot of control already obtained by the side of Ember Foxes, and importantly, they have two objectives to try and choose from. Obviously, Dragon is going to take a little bit longer, so not the most ideal objective right now, but there are still tools to really try and force something like the Anakin first and then move into the Dragon. Although, in most circumstances that we see from this sort of position, usually you try and force first the Anakin, fight for the Anakin, and after the team fight, if you win it or lose it, depending on which side you are. Oh, wait.
Sim gets launched by the blast cone right into the waiting arms of Eon Crystal. And for the fourth time this game, Sim will drop. Huge advantage for Zero Animosity, and they know what that means. Right away, they start to move towards Otacon.
Yeah, and I was saying lucky. I'm actually beginning to think maybe that's just a really bad communication there by the side of Slime, because I think he was the one that popped the plant away and made it so that Sim was going to be thrown into that awful position. There is 20 seconds for Sim to come back, and he does have teleport, so there's still a chance for them to try and fight it. Ooh.
He's done well, maybe taking a little bit too aggressive of a path here, but Z-Score is here for the defense. Here comes the Starfall. And it will be Wonton trying to back them up. Z-Score taken to about half HP. Eclipse has expired. The damage is easy to come by. And it will be Wonton getting a return kill in exchange for the Otacon.
Yeah, it is enough to be able to get the kill on the Otacon. Importantly, they can try and play around it at the very least for now. And the Dragon is something that they can also try and fight. But here's also the advantage we were talking about in terms of the split pushing. You have Renekton pushing topside, and not a lot of members here ready to respond to the play as. Ornn is tanky though.
A little bit of damage taken for that kill on the Z-Score. Need to be controlled here. They do have pressure on the inner turn on top. They're trying to send it on towards Albino. Spino still does get the recast, but will be finished off. And now Eon Crystal's got another rocket. Finds its mark and will execute Slime. Well, though, without ultimate, already TP'd in, gets chunked, has to back away. Dragon going to be the focus now. Can they get the smite off? In comes Eon Crystal. It's a 50-50. And it's secured by Wonton. Eon Crystal be finished off by the laser, and another rocket inferno. Dan, perfect accuracy on these will not be enough to turn the fight back. Sim and Franco have got the damage, and they finish off 4 members of Zero Animosity, an unofficial ace, and a secure of Dragon number 4.
Yeah, it's a slight advantage for the side of Ember Foxes thanks to killing most of the members. They get the Dragon as well, but the Anakin before did go to the side of Zero Animosity. So overall, objective-wise, I do think it's a little bit close between both teams. The fight, though, it really could have gone either way. I think the biggest thing in that fight is the lack of ultimate from the Wukong, because at the end, we see how much value that can make for a fight. And when you have the position where Albino Spino was able to bring up a couple of members with his ultimate, even when he was stun locked, and then the Wukong follows up with an ultimate when he has it, that fight looks completely different. Also, Z-Score being alive would probably make a huge difference as well, but I think having those ultimates up is really what can make or break a fight for Zero Animosity.
And the standing gold now getting cashed out on. You saw Franco just wandered up to mid, threw a satchel charge out and took out an inner turret. He can do the same thing top lane if he gets a little bit of support from the rest of his team. And these are both so much money going into the pocket of the Ziggs. Gonna have that Rabadon's death cap done before too long, and that's where these new AP ratios really start to come online. Paul the Forge God committed. Can they get on a Franco here? Flashes away. And it will be the cost of Call the Forge God and Solar Flare. Ember Foxes maybe looking for a little re-engage angle here, knowing that those are some important teamfight ultimates down. They're struggling to find it. Well will find Red Sword. He's very strong, doesn't fear the Renekton too much. They will brawl it out in the bot side jungle. while Ember Foxes fails to get a fight started.
Honestly, I would argue that's a really good trade for the side of Zero Animosity. Once again, Flash from the 6 is way more valuable than any ultimate at this point of the game, because on the next round, you actually can kill the 6 thanks to that. So certainly, I think Zero Animosity going for the right play, nothing burned out of that play, and I'm not sure how long is Leone's Flash before it's going to come back up, but that can also be just set up for Franco dying in the future, in the near future. And with Baron buff at this point in the game, that can really make a difference for how Zero Animosity can get control of the game. It's going to be important seeing how Ember Foxes play around that and don't take fights that can just enable the enemy team to get on top of the 6 as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Sim is so behind that Franco is such a critical part of this team fight playing. You see, Franco's a full item up. He's got a whole Rabadons on what Sim has right now, and that is critical for them to be able to pump out this team fight damage. They go in for Franco again. Dodges out on the Solar Flare again, and Franco continues to absorb this pressure, gets more damage onto Isamwell than Zero Animosity are able to put into him, and that's 4 members in mid lane, and once again, the Solar Flare down, but no opportunities to capitalize. There's no small objectives, and you can't start Baron just because Z-Score's ulti's down.
Yeah, it really goes to show why the attention towards Franco was so important, because with how the game from Sim progressed, him being behind would have been a death sentence for Ember Foxes. But here, where they have a lot more value, where they have quite a bit of potential poke thanks to the 6, and also the satchel being that big, really makes a difference. As are they gonna? No, it's not gonna fight.
Just looking for a little bit of poke damage onto Albino Spino. A different target, a different time, perhaps. They try to use that Shojin Pantheon damage to see if they can force somebody out of the fight, but Ornn eats that for breakfast. Not too afraid. So they will continue to keep the push going in mid lane. Franco, well adapted for this in his element. He continues to clear things out. And a minute to go on this next dragon. This will be soul point for whoever's able to secure it. And Slime, maybe up a little far here. Z-Score going to see if he can lock him down and set up for some additional damage and even a pick. Ooh. Another Solar Flare, another Flash. Z-Score pumping these out on cooldown and getting plenty done.
Yeah, and that's worth it in this position, because now 2 flashes down, Engage from the Rel gets a little bit stunted just because of him not having that, and Slime here.
Found Inferno Dan, doesn't connect the Shattering Strike, but is able to set up for the team anyway. Inferno Dan drops, and Albino Spino cannot save him. Red Sword looking for a little bit more. We'll get the stun onto the clone and eventually decide to back on away. Isamwell, level 16, rank 3 ultimate, wants to find a flanking angle, but the fight might already be over. Inferno Dan getting picked there at the worst possible time. He's going to be down for 20 seconds when the dragon spawns.
Yeah, it just feels like in this position, it's going to be almost impossible to be able to play around this dragon. 20 seconds for Inferno down, dragon already alive. It should be just burnt down here. Although, Wukong, I'm not sure if he was spotted in this position. He can try and go for it still, but they are going to just see the Wukong on the side. I think they just give it up. It's only 3rd dragon of the game. It's not really the biggest difference maker. Oh.
He's getting in there, but this may be a little too aggressive. No actual pick to be found. Over the wall comes Wonton and will finish off Z-Score. Another death timer started, and now the pings are onto the Baron, TDS.
Yeah, they have the advantage here with more members, plus they know that one of their engaged tools is down at this point from the Ornn Horn being down, not only the Leona, but the Ornn Horn as well. So that just means that they have a lot of free range to walk into the Baron buff. That being said, they still don't want to try and pop in this position, because they have 2 members that have no flash, and they can be killed very, very easily if they are picked up in a bad spot. And it looks like that may be something that Zero Animosity will try and take advantage of, although Aurora is not here, teleporting here.
Looking to see if they can find that flank. Remember, Isamwell, so strong, 3 items deep on this Aurora, rank 3 ultimate. Would be absolutely devastating if they got a big Between Worlds off. And I think Ember Fox is just showing respect to that. They haven't recalled since their couple of picks and Dragon. They might want to just spend some of this money.
Yeah, and I like the respect here. You don't need to overly commit. You don't need to overly force. You have a lot of gold, a 6 that is about to pop off, so you don't need to push the issue way too much in this position. The Baron can be great, but you also have great wave clear. So even if they get the Baron buff, it's not going to be the end of the world for Ember Foxes. It's more so a necessity that Zero Animosity has than something that Ember Foxes need to be able to close out this game. So as long as they can play respectfully around that and threaten the bait onto Zero Animosity, that can be more ideal.
That's what they're going to need. Absolute discipline. And that's what both these teams have been working on all season, not chasing unnecessary fights, prioritizing the macro game, playing as one unit. And it's going to need to be whoever is able to execute on that better that will likely come away with this game. It's just one person trying to play hero, one person not understanding their role on the map that will make the difference in this game from this state.
One person being the hero, the other being the bait or the gullible target that everyone wants to kill, as Franco is potentially going to be that if he's not careful enough, but he's playing with such a good range that it's difficult to really think that he's going to be a victim of that.
Yeah, hard to see, but could indeed be another pick in the brew for too long. But for now, both teams going to just reset, going to get their money spent, and going to move up towards this Baron as the next objective on the table and as the big threat that Ember Foxes want to make prominent on the map. Trying to get some vision cleared out, trying to set a trap with Slime, who has not gotten a huge magnet storm really so far this game. It's been individual one-off picks.
Yeah, they are trying to look here for something a little bit more maybe aggressive to really find the right angle. Sim really has to be careful because he has been the main target, but he does have Sun just now, so at the very least he has way more survivability that he has had before, and that means that any sort of threat that he was suffering beforehand can be changed immediately. That's such a good ward here to stop Z-Score from going forward.
Z-Score throws out the solar flare, doesn't get anything for it. All summoners, all cooldowns up for both sides, but Slime might be up a little bit far. Flashes back away, Call the Forge God comes through, only lines the knock up onto Sim, no follow-up available, and both parties will back on away. Ember Foxes recognizing they don't need to get baited into this fight because they're the ones with presence in the side lanes. Red Sword threatening on this inner turret, and I've got to believe he's going to take it. He's got another wave coming on in. He's got the buff of the grubs, and 700 gold right into Red Sword's pocket.
Yeah, more gold in their favor, more value in their favor as well, opening up the map a little bit more. And I think the main thing here is always looking at how they are going to try and start a play to compared to what they are going to find with that play. And they are using Leona ultimate, they are using Ornn ultimate, but all of that first of all was focused on Slime. So you're trying to use all of that just to kill the support, and then when they are looking for Franco, his position is just really good, and he's enabling the rest of the team to be really comfortable with the fact that Six is not going to be picked up after that, and then they can play a pretty normal team fight after the matter because they know that their Six is going to be in a really good spot off of where he's trying to stand as.
Ooh, Slime going in for the crash down here. The backup's not quite here yet, but Z-Score is happy to oblige. Gets in there with the Z, getting focused down, and Franco will blow him up. Now look at this damage coming through out of Eon Crystal. He's got to retreat, but between world's one-shot Slime from Esamuel. It's support for support. Call the Forge God might be out of position, but Albino Spino sends it towards the bottom, thinks that he's got the pick onto two. Red Sword goes in for the stun. Sim still trying to path his way out of here. Franco supporting with bombs from the side. So many low health bars, and Inferno Dan walks through the minefield. He dies for it, and in goes Red Sword. One already down, soon to make it two, has the cutoff on Esamuel, but will be finished off. It's a triple kill to the Aurora. Franco and Esamuel, the last two standing.
How the hell does this end up being a 4-4-4 at the end of it? Really should have been a much better fight for Ember Foxes with how it started. They find the Corki on the side. They are able to kill the Leona super quick in that fight as well. And at the end, it's just because of how much chaos was happening that they are able to play around it. Ooh, Franco. Not enough range.
Off to the side. It's only Z-Score.
Yeah.
He represents no threat. They're able, or at least they should be able to start on off this dragon. I think they're a little nervous about it though without their jungler. So just trying to secure a little more vision, trying to secure a little bit more control. Z-Score is still just out here
Oh,
trying
wait.
to engage. Has Esamuel between worlds. Shut
Finally.
down to Esamuel. And is this going to be an unofficial pentakill? He's going to be able to clear out Slime as well. It's
Will
the
he?
most unofficial of pentakills
Yes.
because everybody's already respawned. But hey, I'll give it to him. 11, 1, and 2 on the Aurora.
Yeah, but the unofficial part that is more important is that Franco died in the process. They take down the 6, they find the important carry on the side of Ember Foxes, and that means that it's going to be another Dragon Force Zero Animosity. It's not Soul, but it's really close to it. And finally, we see C-Score being able to push the issue, find the 6, and the 6 wasn't even able to flash away. He does keep his flash for the next fight, but this is a perfect opportunity to go for the Baron buff. There's no teleport on the 6, so he's going to take way too long to arrive here.
Yeah, and I mean, with Red Sword down, he's going to TP for this. Ember Foxes realize what's going on. They feel like they need to stop it, but they don't have Slime. This is 3 versus 5. Albino Spino caught on the side. Red Sword looking to get them some vision as the frontliner, but Z-Score's arrived, and you're just hopelessly outnumbered here. Here comes the likes of Wonton, but it's too late. I think he also got interrupted by that solar flare as he never ended up crashing down.
Yeah, actually really good decision there to try and stop it, and 2 members strong, able to stop the push for the Baron buff means that now Zero Animosity has a Baron buff. We're going to see, though, the dynamic that we were talking a little bit about in draft and also during the game, where you have a Victor and a 6. That's way too much wave clear. I'm not even sure if that's going to be enough to be able to push the base even with Baron buff, but you have a tool finally for trying to attempt something like that, because before side lanes were getting pushed, you were not able to find a good opportunity to go into the base. This is probably the first time they are going to find that, and that they can try and push the issue with it. They are going to finally take the first turret until the pause comes through, though.
All right, a little bit of a pause. You got some time to breathe. And this has been a back and forth game, TDS. Huge props to Esamuel and huge props to Z-Score for being able to re-solidify themselves in this game as we do get back into the action. Z-Score especially, I mean, has never stopped looking for picks. Doesn't reflect on the stat line, and, you know, perhaps it reflects in the 6 deaths. But
Healy-Sang existed by being that sort of player, and I think C-Score can try and do something similar. I'm obviously not saying that he's Healy-Sang light, but I like the mindset that if you're going to go for an engage support, you try and engage. It can work for better or for worse, sometimes actually costing your team the win. But this sort of a mentality is also what finds you the winning play. And if they can find Franco because of a huge engage from C-Score, I think that's a completely worth sort of play that they can force here.
Yeah, I mean, the timing here is such that Ember Foxes can kind of just clear out forever, but they have certainly allowed this game to kind of stall out, and that has resulted in these Ornn upgrades coming on across. Albino Spino delivering some hidden gold value to all of his teammates at this stage. Now he's level 18, 38 minutes into this one. He's relentlessly tanky. The rest of the team have got bonus stats, and the actual ability to cut through this Ornn is going to start to become a real question.
Yep.
Yes, they're getting void staffs for both of them, but I mean, these are mages, man. There's no real consistent DPS that's going to be able to work their way through this tank.
Yeah, it just feels like there's not going to be enough in their gas to be able to run through them unless they are able to find the squishy champions beforehand. And even then, there's chances where even if you find the squishy champions, there's still not going to be enough to be able to kill the Ornn or kill the Wukong if the Wukong's still alive. Oh,
trying to make a play happen on a Red Sword. He was able to dash back. Here comes the Cosmic Starfall, trying to find an engage. It's only on to Z-Score. Mega Inferno Bomb gets good damage done to the backside. Albino's
by himself.
To focus, absorbing all 5 members. And you know what? That's one way to take down the tank. 5v1 for like 3 or 4 seconds, and Ember Foxes do get Albino Spino out of there.
Yeah, they're able to lock him down long enough that they can get the damage down, and it turns out that maybe the magic resistance just not there yet, and that means that opens up a little bit of the map. The Baron buff probably going to be completely wasted now at this point because you're not going to be able to open up the base, and it's going to be a fight for control over the river and Baron pit, and Dragon pit. Sorry, you want to try and get that control as soon as possible because 4 to 6, if he gets just the first move into it, poking wise, he's just going to be a complete another monster, and there's not going to be a lot of tools to try and stop him. And if you arrive a little bit later, you can kind of enable the Leona or the Ornn to try and set up a trap for the 6.
Now, with a couple of additional seconds before this dragon spawns, it might all come down to this one. 18 to 18, 40 minutes in, Dragon Soul for the taking. And a TP being channeled nice and early by Sim to make sure that this positioning belongs to Ember Foxes. Is it early? Perhaps, but it guarantees that they will have control over this bottom jungle, and it makes it Zero Animosity's job to approach respectfully and not skip any steps.
They did force the Renekton down here and the Ornn up there. Actually, even Ornn teleporting to the turret out of fear, not even knowing where he could go. But they want to go for a 5v fight in this position, front to back, and see how it turns out. Every member is here, everyone is ready for the ARAM, and they are just waiting a little bit to see how they can try and set it up.
Ember Foxes are already in the river. Zero Animosity thinking about catching Albino. Red Sword going to pull the trigger. They go in onto Albino. Spino, he only loses about a quarter.
Oh, wait, the engage?
Between Worlds lands onto 3. There's Call the Forge God onto yet further members. And Red Sword is dropped so damn fast. Slime going to join him as well. Z-Score getting worked through by these bombs. Sim has to go into the stasis, but Albino Spino's going to be waiting for him on the other side. He's able to flash back to safety. Big laser through the team. Will take down Eon Crystal. And Z-Score is going to have to back on away as well, looking to chase for more. There's the Starfall onto the back line, cutting off Z-Score's route of escape. Comet Spear nearly takes him out, but Z-Score is able to stay standing. 2 members of the Ember Foxes are down, but the health bars are wiped away for Zero Animosity, and they march on to the dragon. Will Isamuel be able to get over here and interrupt it?
I think they're way too late at this point. They are just now realizing about the dragon potential. They are going to lose the dragon here, and more than likely they are going to escape. So all in all, even though they lost 2 members, Ember Foxes still is able to rearrange themselves, have a lot of value of just running back and trying to poke and throw damage safely, and then they are able to kill them really well with the damage that they had. That was so much damage they had, and so well placed as well, just controlling the spaces really effectively and not allowing the Corki or the Wukong to really get onto the back.
Really nice from Ember Foxes, still staying stalwart even after the fight starts to go awry, and they come out on top. They win the big objective. The gold of the kills does not matter at 42 and a half minutes into the game. It's all about the objective, and the fact that they have this soul is going to be critical for them if they want to try to fight their way back out of this one. The scaling about as strong as it's going to be for either side. Full 6 items on Franco. Still not quite there for Inferno Dan.
Yeah, close, but not enough yet. They are not going to have enough damage just yet on their AD carry to really say that they have the 6 items in their favor. But that last item, probably an IE, is going to be such a huge boon to his damage in how they are going to try and play with it. Or actually a Bloodthirster. But it's going to be important seeing how much damage he can get with that last item. And then what they are going to be fighting for. Because Baron is up, but I'm not sure if it's an objective that you want to die for at this point in the game. And then Elder is in for 30. So it's going to be a little bit longer before they can actually commit to it. Looks like maybe the turrets are the objectives.
I mean, they have the inside track in this mid lane, just trying to catch these waves nice and high, make sure that the push still keeps coming in. Here comes Eon Crystal on the flank, but who's flanking who? They do get the knockups on multiple members. Franco's going to flash back over the wall. Slime looking to channel the Hex Flash. They need to get onto somebody. They need to make this a fight.
Heal, though.
Say, screw it, we can take Albino Spino. Them getting dove on onto the back line. Inferno Dan nearly drops. Franco goes into the stasis to try to avoid the damage from
Franco's alive.
World, and will be able to hold on for a little bit longer. Sim and Franco both low. Here comes Eon Crystal.
Franco may not be alive.
Trying to find a carry, trying to find a kill, trying to shut someone down. Isamuel has fallen. They found Franco, but it's at the cost of everything. 3 members are down for a full minute, and Ember Foxes might be on the victory march.
There may not be dynamite for the turrets, but there is enough firepower to try and take them down. It's only 2 members, one of them Inferno down, and he's a little bit scared about it. He's trying to clean the wave, and I really like that approach, trying to destroy it before the wave can crash there, but it's going to be really difficult to put a stop to this, and they are rushing into the base.
This is a pair that could make this stand. They need to keep Inferno Dan safe. Double lockup does connect. Look at the damage out of this Corki. One will fall, and the slow applies from the Otacon. If Sim falls, it could be the end of the whole team. Albino Spino looking to extend for more. Front line being established from Wonton, but the damage is just not there. Slowed, knocked up, taken down. Inferno Dan finds a killing spree as he finishes a second member, and now it's on the other foot. It's a full member off the map for a full minute in the form of Wonton, and the Baron is up for the taking.
Yeah, immediately popped the teleporter as well to try and get the kill. Here's Sim. He's down.
Oh, and he finds it. Samuel. 12-2-5. Been a while since he's gotten another kill, but he finds a critical one. Victor down for a minute, and Zero Animosity with full control over the map. They're going to get this Baron.
Yeah, there's absolutely no vision here. Oh, Samuel. There is a plant, so probably not going to be dying here. The Honeyfruit saving lives, as always. But it's another Baron buff for the side of Zero Animosity. And for how controlled the game had been for Ember Foxes, realistically, they've lost both Baron buffs. Also, I hate their acronym. I get confused all the time by Echo Fox.
Ember Foxes. Best we can do. Listen, this was me earlier with Papa's Chonks and Peach Cats.
Yep.
So, happens to the best of us, but... yeah, Ember Foxes, not Echo Fox. Different Foxes, different teams, different eras. But Ember
different
owners. Different owners. Still hanging on as we look to see what they can do. Sim back on the map. The game will not end off of those deaths. A Nexus turret down, an inhibitor down, but the Baron in the pockets of Zero Animosity.
Yeah, and with that, now essentially they are going to not only try and push here with the Baron buff that they have, but finally make a dent into the base. Because the biggest problem that they have is that the Victor and the Six are essentially just wave clear monsters. With the Sivir, with the Asir, these are the champions that you want to never have to face in terms of, oh, Z-score.
Zenith played in. Z-score looking to get the fight started. Red Sword going to be able to push him back, and they do not go for the full commit. Bot inner turret going to fall. Gold means nothing at this stage. Over 80k per team, full builds nearly across the board. And the difference
We've reached a point where even Elder is spawning in 40 seconds. And that is a game-winning buff. Like, I think both teams probably are going to try and fight it. But finally, they did break the base open. And this is the best chance they've ever had on the side of Zero Animosity to not only get this push one of the waves on the side, and then set up for Baron buff.
I mean, the fact that Baron is keeping things pushed in makes it so favored to be able to take this Elder Dragon. It is a tough angle for Ember Foxes after having gotten up those picks, after having overextended in the push for the end. Sensing that they could close out a 40-plus minute game might have cost them the whole first round. See what they can accomplish here. Trying to push their way in through the jungle. Red Sword trying to be a big tanky frontliner for this squad. Give them the space they need, and they're going to take the mid wave all the way up. They do have
Elder started
here, which Zero Animosity
started Elder.
Not, and it gives them the chance to fight back. Corki's already working on the Elder, and I don't think that they're aware that this is going on. They see 3 members in mid, and they think that it's done for. Elder track in to Zero Animosity, and they are so powerful in the fights.
Yeah, they're going to have a slight window of time where they have both Baron and Elder. They can try and push the bot lane wave, though. I'm surprised that nobody's going down there. They have that one wave to really make the push here, but they're going to take the slow approach. They're going to play off of the mid wave that is coming just now, and they're going to try and take down this inhibitor. But it's going to be just a slight margin where they have both Baron and Elder, and they can try and maybe win the game with that. They are going to opt against it, though. Looks like they are really scared about it.
The call was just group is 5 and we can't lose. We're too big to fail. But that is clearly not the call. So Animosity peeling back up towards the top. This game will go on, TDS. We're going to hit 50 minutes.
Yeah, the thing is that now with no Elder, with no Baron buff, only Elder, you have to commit to a fight because Wave Clear will destroy these minions. There's nothing to really make these minions be as strong to just get the push going, only maybe supers. But even then, that's still enough to be able to push them away because you have 6 picture with 6 items both, or 5 and 6.5.
Turtling up, trying to control the pace of the game. That's the name of the game for this Ember Fox's composition, and they're making it work. Cold not being sent. They don't get it onto Franco. There's the solar flare. It finds its way out to Slime. He's just going to send it for an engage, trying to get the stun up on towards the front liner. Slime is down. Elder damage onto Red Sword will cause him to fall as well, but the health bars are low. Franco and Sim are still standing. Sim was forced to flash back away, getting back into the base to get a little bit of health back. And Franco's still here to throw out bombs. They lose 2 inhibitors, but they cling on to the game, TDS. And this Elder Dragon will fall away soon. I think that is it for this Elder. I think the game will continue. I think we're going to get another round of Epic Monsters
is this a
here.
second Elder?
Over to 50 minutes.
Is this a second Elder angle? 4,126 Locket. That's really good value. But yeah, a second round of Elder, a third round of Baron, and not the game over just yet. That's surprising, to say the least. With how much teamfight value Zero Animosity has, they are just not able to close it out because they are not able to reach Franco in the backline or even kill Sim when he was a little bit easier to try and burst out. So we'll wait and see how long the game takes, but this is probably one of the better opportunities for them as well.
Yeah. Wait, is that... That's a Watchful Ward Stone in the inventory Z-score. I'm going to be completely honest
that exists, right?
I didn't remember. If you had asked me at the beginning of this game, is Watchful Ward Stone still in the game, I think I would have told you no.
I would have asked, what the hell is that?
It's the item that holds control wards.
Yeah, I remember now that there's an item that exists for that that we never see because games never get to this point. So, and nobody even wants to build it. Like, I feel like more times than less, when you get to this point, supports would rather just build like tankiness or anything like that instead of wards.
Well, it is tankiness. It is some armor, some MR, some health, some ability.
But you can get more in other items.
Yeah, you can get more from real items, but you always need to keep the slot open for control wards, I think is the logic. Yep. Although I guess Slime feels otherwise because Slime has 6 real items. He's just not getting...
Yeah, like here's the thing. Is the control ward really that meaningful if you get engaged on and you die immediately? I think that's the question that I ask here. It may be, it may be not, but with how the game has been going, I think it's only going to be defined by a team fight, and we'll have to wait and see how big of a team fight it's going to be.
Could it be a team fight in
Horn?
Albino Spino says no. Albino Spino sends it with Call of the Forge God. Between Worlds only really connects on a frontliner. Slime taking a bunch of damage here. Going to try to run interference for the rest of his team. Big damage from Mega Inferno Bomb. Most of it onto the clone. Z-Score still standing. Will be able to retreat back away.
Red Sword
and Wonton both still standing, but
they're still alive.
Fall. They get back up into the base. They're still standing, TDS. It's only Slime that's down, and Sim is still here to clear out the waves. The damage out of the turret is massive, though. Here's the Cosmic Starfall to the back line. Z-Score getting focused onto by Wonton. One more Q will do it. They drop the Nexus turret, but Albino Spino is low. Franco and Sim still looking for the damage. Another engage from Wonton, only onto the clone. Franco loses all of his health, but he manages to finish off ASAM well. It's another target down. Sim is now stepping up. It's a TP into the base. Albino Spino is looking to backdoor right in the face of Ember Foxes and take the second Nexus turret. Red Sword's going to find him. That super minion is a hero. It takes the Nexus turret. Exposed Nexus for Ember Foxes.
And it's going to be Baron
cost of 3 members. Albino Spino down for 70.
And it's gonna be Baron Bob, but it's going to be a Baron Bob against 4 members. Actually, they can't. No, they can't. Yeah, 4 members alive, 2 only on the side of Zero Animosity. And the problem is, like you were mentioning, it's going to be a 40-second Elder, and Albino is 50 seconds away with no teleport. So there's no way for them to have their top laner for this next Elder Dragon.
Franco's on vision. They know. They know what's going down, TDS. They're on their way over here. The Baron's at 13k HP. It takes so long to do when your only damage dealer is the Ziggs. And here comes Eon Crystal. He can flip this. He can put the entire game onto a coin flip over this Baron. He's over the wall. He's looking for the steal. Can Wonton get it? He's going to send himself an Inferno Dan. It's a smite successful for Eon Crystal. But Inferno Dan will trade 1-for-1 with Franco. Sim is coming up. It's his job to clear the waves now.
If Samuel has teleport, he can teleport to this wave, but he doesn't have the Baron Pop. Oh, they haven't seen the Phantom here, but Elder is now up. They don't have the Corki though. They don't have the damage dealer to try and take down this Elder as quickly as possible, but it really looks like they want to try and get something here.
Oh, all right. They found Z-Score. This guy's invincible when Eclipse is up, by the way, at least in the faces of this Pantheon and Renekton combo.
He still want to go in, but oh wait, Sim,
he finds Sim. The disrespect
He's
from the
so
victor
good.
could cost Ember Foxes everything. Z-Score makes the pick happen. Red Sword into the back line, but well going to be able to kite him out using the Between Worlds, and the respawn timer on Franco is so long. I think that might be
Franco is still dead.
Both carries off the map. Exposed Nexus, Zero Animosity find the picks that they need. And in a 55-minute
wait for it, Gordo.
They are marching on the next, and there's no way for Ember Foxes to stop them. Game number 1 to Zero Animosity.
I really thought 6 was going to come back there and then out of nowhere just killed 5 people. Did we go over the 60-minute mark? I wasn't even paying attention at one point because everything was just chaotic. Like, there was nothing that we actually were able to really call with how the game went. 55-22, I think it's the end of it. So, yeah, chaos is the least or the best word to describe it, but at the same time, I think it lacks the depth of the game that we just saw. That being said, it was a really enjoyable game. I think important there at the end, Franco getting traded by Inferno and then losing the Baron buff, that wins the game. But then also Cisco with that pick onto Sim. We talked about this, like, he may die occasionally because of that playstyle, but he gets you the game-winning play, and he found it.
Yeah, I mean, it fell off towards the end there, stopped getting the kills so consistently, but shout out to Samuel here, leading the damage charts for Zero Animosity, having the damage to be able to one-shot at the very end there, and just doing such a good job in these team fights. The Between Worlds, the big AoE damage, that was often the difference maker, and it allowed for Zero Animosity to be able to eventually close this one out and win a game of attrition.
Yeah, exactly. It's just waiting for it to come through and trying to make it seem in the best way possible what they were looking for. And I think the game, for how it started, the way that it ends, it's kind of surprising because it really felt like for a huge part of the game, or maybe not a huge part, but by a good amount of time, the side of Ember Foxes could have cleaned up the game really effectively with how strong Franco was, but just simply got out team fought and also outpatient. I'm not sure if there's a word to describe what I'm trying to say, but like, they weren't patient enough to play the game off with your 6, and they never really made use of the silent pressure that the Renekton had. Because most of the time they send members to try and respond to the other side of the map from Zero Animosity, and the Renekton was left by himself, but he just got 1 or 2 turrets. He never really pressured the base as much as he could have.
Yeah, and definitely got to look back at some specific moments here, right? A lot of ground lost by the likes of the Ember Foxes off that attempted end, but perhaps also some moments where they could have pushed their advantage a little bit more and tried to close things out. 55 minutes a game to look back on. You don't have enough time to review all of that. You just got to get back to what you know, what you prepped throughout the week, what you learned throughout the season. And if you are lucky enough to get another match tomorrow, if you're skilled enough to come on out and close out this series in reverse sweep fashion, then is the time to review that 55-minute monster of a game. For now, you're just going to have to put it behind you. We are going to throw it to a quick break here before we get into draft for game number 2. But first things first, do want to give a shout out to Zen Market. Zen Market is your one-stop solution for buying products directly from Japan. They'll help you buy items from over 10,000 shops, as well as place bids on auctions on your behalf. They'll even consolidate all your items safely into one box that can ship internationally. They provide excellent customer service in 19 languages, which is why Zen Market is trusted by over 2 million users worldwide. Check out the panel below the stream or click the link in the chat to try them out now. If you sign up with promo code Aegis, you'll get 1,000 yen off your first international shipping fee. In addition, check out the special viewer giveaway by typing !giveaway in the chat for your chance to win a Nintendo 64. Thank you very much to Zen Market for supporting Aegis in the ACL, and we will see you guys after a short break for game number 2. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the ACL, where after a 55-minute banger, Zero Animosity are up 1-0 over Ember Foxes. But we talked about it, TDS. Zero Animosity have been here before. They have won many individual games this season, but they have not won a series. Can they close this one out?
Yeah, they're one step closer, but also a huge mountain to go over after that, because it's not the first time they've been here, like you're mentioning, and it's probably not going to be the last if they are not able to win this here. But they were playing really well. They had the right mindset in how they wanted to play, and I think they executed their composition with what they needed to. Now, can they go for something similar in the next game, or will they try and adapt from that? 10 champions already out. That means that we're bound to see something a little bit different from the previous game. Maybe there's some openings from the ban phase as well that come through, but for now I would like them to try and replicate what they did previously, because I think it worked out really well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. It's going to be tough to replicate a composition like Ember Foxes again, so they're definitely going to have to change direction. Without the Victor, without the Ziggs, the Turbo Wave Clear, probably not an option that you have available to you. So we'll see what direction they want to move in. They've emphasized throughout this season that they want to be a flexible team. They want to be a team that can play different play styles, that can have anybody be a carry at any time. They're going to have to show some of that flexibility here coming into Fearless game number 2. They fully indexed on that kind of wave clear approach. Didn't work out for them, and now it is off the table.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be important to see how they are going to respond after the previous game, because like we mentioned before, I think they had the upper hand for a good amount of the previous game, and it took them a lot to be able to even get a lot of their control that they did, and they kind of just let it go without really pressuring in the way that they could have with their composition. So hopefully they can try and turn it around, maybe play a little bit more straightforward in this game and try and make it a little bit easier on themselves. There's still multiple champions that they can try and go for, multiple tools that they can have to try and play the game, and also they can finally have maybe Franco in an actual carry that can try and deal and win the game through that, because he played a great 6 game. He was picked off 2 times, yes, but he really was a difference maker for a huge amount of that game, and was the main reason why the game was so close as well, because after Zero Animosity started winning some of the fights, it really was the 6 holding the things together for Ember Foxes.
Yeah, Franco played that game very, very well. Unfortunately, Franco's most played champion this split is the Corki, which Zero Animosity has successfully fearlessed away. We'll have some other options here. Has shown plenty of other carries as well. Has also not had Ziggs be the only mage they play. They've played Mel throughout this season as well. So if they do want to keep to that mage bot strat, they do have another tool in the arsenal, but I certainly would not mind seeing them move over towards a more traditional marksman as well. The Vayne is something else we've seen out of them, and the Varus, something else that they've drawn a lot of bans on. We'll see if that stays true, even in the face of nerfs towards lethality Varus as the season has gone on. Kali and Syndra, though, both directed towards Sim, are going to be the bans of the hour.
Yeah, and probably one of the players that I'm also looking here to step up, because the previous game was a little bit lackluster coming in from Sin. He got picked up a lot of times. He did good damage after a certain point, but he was playing Victor. I think that was more virtue of the champion than virtue of the player in that sense. And I want him to try and step it up a little bit more, because he really needs to turn around some of the situations that happened as the last remaining bans do come through. This time around, the Asir looks to be the first pick, and also the Varus was banned away with the Talia. So the pool in the mid lane getting a much more attack this time around, going a little bit harder on what champions are available now. Maybe the Galio becomes a better option for the side of Ember Foxes, and Sivir could also jump up in priority just because her wave clear going against the Asir is always ideal to play with.
Could be. Azir locked in, of course, for Zero Animosity to start things off. So already getting themselves a solid mid laner for Esamuel, who put together such a good game, number one, on the Aurora. You got to feel, or you got to understand why they feel such confidence in him starting in this game number two, giving it to the hot hand, as they say, as they lock him in an early pick. Azir. Orianna going to be the response from Sim, so no pushover in their department either. And this could be a good opportunity to go for something like the Nocturne for Wonton. If they do want to piece themselves together a really reliable engage combo. It's also not a terrible role to blind. Could also go for the Rek'Sai. This is a little bit of Ember Fox's special sauce, and they will snap it up, especially in an environment where the Rek'Sai just got a little bit of buffs.
Yeah, recently buffed, so certainly can try and work around really well. Can work in the top lane as well, apart from the jungle, obviously. So there's also tools to try and play around that. I'm kind of curious in where we're going to see the focus from the Rek'Sai, but there's a good ball carrier already, thanks to the fact that you can dive in with the ball and then just jump back up with the Rek'Sai and use the combo with the Rihanna as well. So there's good mix-ups that you can go here and there. The Ivern giving a little bit more protection in the jungle, but that does mean that your main purpose here is going to be just enabling the rest of your team. Something that I feel like Keon did well, but more aggressively. Like, he was a really good playmaker in the previous game, and I think it's interesting that they are opting now for a little bit more of a backstep here in how they are approaching, but still trying to be the supportive force for the team. And then the Alistar was banned away in the second round of bans in the previous game. This time around, open and probably going to be a good engage tool for someone like C-Score that wasn't scared at all to try and go in.
Yeah, and looking to maybe play a little bit more of a traditional front-to-back team fight comp, get some of those ranged DPS, dishing out damage from the bushes here for Zero Animosity. Ember Foxes, the hard engage is a good response into that kind of stuff. They will snap up the Yunara for Franco.
Okay.
So match it, a little bit of scaling in their own right. And now with an opportunity to maybe ban away some of the more flexible late game carries like that Sivir, maybe like the Jinx as well, and create themselves a more favorable lane situation for their Yunara.
Yeah, I was really thinking of the Sivir here to try and be the counter in this situation. Great wave clear, really comfortable in the bot lane without having to do much, and then you can enable the Alistar to try and move around them up pretty comfortably. The bans pretty straightforward, a lot of bot lane focus like we were mentioning before, and this taking away this Braum I think also is a little bit of a ban for the side of Zero Animosity, in the sense that I think Braum against the Alistar is not necessarily a bad choice in how they want to try and force some of these plays. Plus the Yunara stun worked out really well with a Braum passive effectively. So I think overall the idea here, not bad for what they are banning away. As what they are left with picking here, they can really show if it's going to be a Rek'Sai jungle or a Rek'Sai top, and they can also opt for their support here. In terms of tanks that are enabled or that are still available that you can go for engage supports, Nautilus and the Rakan are the two options that I'm jumping in. Funnily enough, though, this still doesn't really show us anything, because Nautilus jungle, we were talking about this as well. This could be flex still.
Certainly could be the Nautilus to be paired on up with the Yunara, most likely, but could be a little bit of a threat otherwise. I think Rek'Sai top's a little bit dead, but not a 100% guarantee. The Senna going to be the lock-in from support. Zir going to be the primary DPS, and Yorick going to kind of pivot this composition at the last moment. It's now going to be Albino Spino in the side lanes, and they now have a lot of ability to really disengage and focus in towards that Yorick. The only thing is, Red Sword's got final pick.
Yeah, we don't really know where it's going, if it's the Rek'Sai or not, and it's going to be all defining here. I think the Senna is an interesting choice because, like you were mentioning, the Asir and the Yorick take a bit more of a front step here in how they are going to try and attempt to play the game, but her still is a really good controllable character to really try and keep down the Yunara as much as possible, and her healing plus the Ivern's healing late game is going to be really bothersome to try and deal with. The Sion here to close it out, so it is going to be a Rek'Sai in the jungle and a Sion in the top lane. I'm not sure if I like the matchup from Sion into Yorick, just because I do think I may be misremembering, and I should know this beforehand, but I think the goals do percentage, or not percentage, do armor penetration, right? So they are just going to
land the E, I believe. Yeah, if you land the
I mean, when you land the E, if they jump on top of you, they do have armor pen, is what I was meaning. So if they have that, like, I think this matchup becomes much easier to try and pilot as the Yorick in general.
Yeah, I do believe you can also use them to stack Soul Furnace, so at least you can get a little bit of extra health throughout the laning phase.
Okay, fair enough.
If you're farming on up some of those ghouls, but definitely not going to be like the side lane kind of force to deal with this Yorick in the long term, though. Ember Fox is now leaning even more heavily on, they're going to need to go in, right? They're going to need to start a fight 5 versus 4 while the Yorick's in the side lane in a lot of circumstances to really be able to bust through here, because otherwise Zero Animosity are going to play safe, pull you aside, waste your time, and let Yorick take so much for it in the end of the day. So,
and once again, the healing also works really well for that as well.
Yeah. So definitely do need to see Ember Foxes be decisive in their moves and get fights started. And we're going to need to see Zero Animosity be disciplined in their positioning and not let themselves wander up too far and get caught.
The good thing is that you do have good engaged tools on the side of Ember Foxes. You have point and click ultimate with the Nautilus. You can try and lock down someone like the Sen or the Seer that, even though they have tools to try and escape, they are still not necessarily impossible to try and catch. And then you also have the Orianna follow-up for the Sion, for the Rek'Sai. You have great tools with that in mind, and then a great hyper-scaling champion like the Orianna to really lock down the game in case it goes really late. Overall, I think there's good tools for Ember Foxes here. I think they have more tools as well to try and be a teamfight composition, but I think Zero Animosity, just when they arrive to that late game, the amount of healing they have and also the Asir diff plus the Senna stacking can be really scary.
It really can be. So lots of late game scaling for Zero Animosity, and maybe a little bit of a timer on Ember Foxes again. I think you could have made that argument for them last game. Of course, it goes to 55 minutes and Ember Foxes almost wins. So perhaps disregarding the timers a little bit here. And the threat of the Yunara, it cannot be disregarded either, right? This champion scales very well, and especially up against what is going to be a little bit of a squishier line to work through, right? The Ivern in the jungle, able to maybe buff up some of those carries a little bit more, but themselves going to be more vulnerable aside from the Daisy. So we'll see if they are going to be able to keep this Yunara at bay the way that they plan, especially with such good engage. The Rek'Sai with the AoE knockup back in the kit, the Nautilus, of course, always powerful engager, and the Sion with the charge in the back line from Red Sword. You can see what Ember Foxes are going for to be able to try to get fights started with this Orianna plus all the different engagers and let Yunara clean up the rest. On Zero Animosity to make sure that those angles do not present themselves effectively enough to make it worthwhile.
And if we are going back to a 50-minute game, then just be ready for whatever happens later on, because at the 50-minute mark, it's just going to be whoever gets the picked up first, whoever has the better hands, or whoever has the better attention as to what is going to happen. But I will be honest, hopefully it doesn't go another 50 minutes. I do want to try and make it so that it's not 50 minutes, just in case.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that last game went long. It went perhaps a little bit longer than it would have, and had other teams been playing it, I think it's probably something to walk away from that with. But both of these teams clearly with a lot of pressure on their shoulders here, playing for elimination. Got to think about what it does look like to potentially try to turn this one back into your favor, and you don't want to make any missteps along that way to deny yourself even the chance to qualify tomorrow. No, lots of pressure on the shoulders of both of these squads right now.
Yeah, you don't want to be put into a spot where, well, first of all, you don't want to be eliminated, obviously, and then you don't want to be put into a spot that it's going to make you feel like you have to do something or try and push yourself into doing something, because that just may make it more difficult for you to try and turn around a tough situation. So certainly both teams need to be worried about that, but also need to be ready to step it up, because Zero Animosity is just one step closer, not only from that for them winning their first series, but also importantly surviving longer. And then Ember Foxes for trying to keep themselves alive as well, not necessarily winning the series, but trying to hold on for as long as possible in the ACL.
And a winnable group as well.
Yep.
Sin Eternal Season and Mint Gaming playing to find out who the first team from this group to qualify will be as we speak. The loser of that, certainly an opponent that both teams should feel like they could potentially get away from. Sin Eternal Season dropping a game to Zero Animosity. And Mint Gaming having come in as the 5th seed for this group. Both should be, in theory, beatable. See how they're going to be able to do here.
Yeah, ideally for both of them, they want to still be alive enough so that they can go against them. And like you're mentioning, and this comes off of the fact that it was a little bit random, but I think that the way that some of these groups ended up being set up, we have so much room for surprises to happen. We have so many opportunities here for teams that maybe aren't necessarily the strongest to really make it happen. And that's why I think it's going to be exciting seeing if Zero Animosity can be one of them, or if Ember Boxes can be one of them. And then on one of the other groups, I'm not sure which one was the other group that I thought was pretty... I think it was Calamity's group. That is also another group that you can really get up of.
Yeah, Calamity versus Prosperity for a spot right now, and then Calamity Black and GCS Challengers playing for elimination tonight. That's another group that you do have to keep an eye on as a little bit of a group of life contender there. Meanwhile, looking over the group of death, where Weber State and Milk Esports are playing for qualification, and the loser of that will play Komodo for the last spot. So 1 out of the 3 of Weber State, Milk Esports, and Komodo will be eliminated this week and will not be making their way to the ACL playoffs.
Yeah, that would be a huge blow for any of those 3 teams, especially considering the expectations that most of us had from them at the start of it, with their seeding and all of that. Losing out here would be a pretty big blow to any of those rosters.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the more life-giving groups here, Zero Animosity, Ember Foxes, presuming a Sin Eternal Season win on the other side of the bracket, feels like you could potentially take down Mint. If Mint win, feels like you could potentially take down Sin as well. I think none of these teams looking unbeatable in this group, and in fact, all have been beaten at one or multiple times throughout this season by lower-seeded teams.
Well, that's kind of why they are here.
Yeah, and I mean, a big opportunity here for whoever's able to win this to play for qualification tomorrow against a team that will be coming in cold off a loss. So
yeah,
a big opportunity that you do not want to squander by dropping a winnable matchup here. And you got to believe both these teams come in tonight feeling that this is winnable.
Yeah, the momentum div going into the next series is going to be interesting, because obviously it's going to be the team that wins against the team that loses. And like when you look at it on that perspective, it feels like it's going to be a much better team against a lesser team, but it's actually the team that lost, the one that is quote unquote in the upper side, and then the team that won is quote unquote the one on the lower side. So it makes a really interesting dynamic for a lot of the situations, and especially depending on how close some of these teams are. In going back a little bit into the group from Weber, Milk, and Komodo, any match in that group could really go anyway, bar the Novospheres one. So I think that this sort of thing here as well can have an impact, because I do think that, like you're mentioning, Zero Animosity, Sin, Mint, and Ember Foxes, all of them feel like they are close in level to a certain degree.
Yeah. Little update from our sister stream in the Salt Mine here. Does look like Deathmark Napoleon are completing a 2-0 over Milk Esports Whole Milk.
Like everyone expected.
To qualify for the playoffs. So congratulations, Deathmark Esports Napoleon, on their qualification to the ACL playoffs in a 9th through 12th seed. Very good stuff for them. And you know what? We talked about that. They were our very first featured stream of this ACL TDS. And I was talking about how I believed in them. and how they could be a a potential real contender here. And they made me look a little silly by getting 2-0
Yeah, didn't
by
they got
Weber.
2-0 that series?
Yeah, they got 2-0 by Weber that series, but hey, they made it, baby. They made
Yeah,
it.
it's not what happens in the first series, it's what happens in the last one. And you qualified, so that's more important than anything else. There's a universe where Weaver actually gets eliminated and Deathmark qualifies.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the nature of the format. It's the later
Yep.
matches that matter. Weber, of course, in a seeding favorable position. They will get 2 shots to qualify for playoffs. So Weber nowhere near out of it. They could even get themselves a rematch if if everything goes their way,
Technically.
depending on seed here. Just waiting down this spectate timer to find out if Zero Animosity could potentially be joining them here. Already been a day, a week of slightly unlikely runs here, right? If you look back at the group draw, Deathmark Napoleon, a Pool 5 team, not expected to make playoffs, but they do it at the end of the day.
Yep.
Zero Animosity and Ember Foxes want to join that category. The first step would be winning this series. Let's see if they're going to be able to do it here.
Yeah, you want to be part of the upper echelon of teams here in the A. Oh, they are starting aggressively.
Yeah, finding Slime inside the wall. That's a wall start.
Interesting
for
start,
Albino
yeah.
Spino.
That I'm pretty sure it wasn't a misclick. It was just a conscious decision. But I don't think you were going to die if you're on the side of AA and Crystal in that position. I don't think you end up getting killed. And now it's going to be a bad start for the top lane for the Zero Animosity, because he's going to be suffering a much bigger impact by starting the W. And it means that the threat that you had onto Red Sword really early on probably not going to be that noticeable anymore.
No. And I am kind of curious to see what build we see for Red Sword here. The presence of the Grasp plus the Doran's Shield start makes us feel like it's probably a traditional tank Scion. I think that fits with the team comp better as well. But there are some buffs to AD Scion in the patch, so...
You wanted him to go full Balstall or what?
Yeah, I mean, they buffed Baus this patch, all right? They felt like they had been too mean to him for too long. They threw him a bone. We'll see how that ends up working out for them. As, yeah, these early trades, I mean, Red Sword feeling pretty good. He just plays up against the Procession as the only tool he has to be worried about.
It's the effectiveness of having to go against a wall instead of going against an actual ability. So so far much better for the side of Ember Foxes, and that's the sort of start you need to have when you want to try and come back for a series like this. You want to start it off in a lane where you are going to be essentially pushed into, or at the very least not winning some of the trades, and now you're actually able to fight it out really well, as Sim takes a huge trade in the mid lane. Really nice by E. Samuel. And he's been the main shining point, I think, apart from A and Crystal. He's been really the main shining point from Zero Animosity so far, and really came through with those Aurora ultimates like you mentioned in the previous game.
Yeah, really did. Player to keep our eyes on. Big standout for game number 1, E. Samuel. Joining this roster a little late, a player who was not on this team when they originally signed up for ACL, did not contribute to their seed. A player who is not with them in prior seasons either. Really showing up in game number 1 of this critical series. Let's see if he's going to be able to keep showing up to close the series out. These trades going through. Red Sword already with a level advantage. Look at this trade onto Albino Spino. And this is just all spillover from the level 1. The decision to start Dark Procession feels like it has not paid off.
I will never in my life call it that name, because I will never in my life remember it. But now, forcing the flash, and this is the thing, like, this is what happens if you start the game normally. But the big difference does mean that it's not going to be the case, as it's going to be a spot here for the Ivern that you're not going to know that he's here, but it's not going to turn into anything big, really.
Well, not yet. Another nice trade here found by Red Sword, as he does still have the Soul Furnace to continue trading. Although here come a bunch of ghouls. This is going to be a close one. Red Sword with nowhere to go. It's first blood to Albino Spino. Overforces his hand. Does
what is happening bot though?
Over to Uric as the fight is breaking out of the bottom side. Z-Score bounced around, thrown back and forth, nowhere to go. And that's going to be a flash out forced there by the likes of Wonton, but no kill to be found.
Wonton flashed. So it's a flash for flash. That actually is 4 flashes blown in the bot side, Rek'Sai, Nautilus, C-Score, and also Aeon Crystal did flash, but nobody died. It's only the kill in the top lane that they find on Albino Spino, and that means that it's advantage for the side of Zero Animosity. Plus, now you're going to have a lane where you're going to have consistent pressure in the top side.
Definitely. Now we get into a nice early game rhythm for the likes of Zero Animosity, already starting to win out on that top side, satisfied with how they absorbed the gank in the bottom side. Samuel, a little bit behind, but nothing that is going to cause him to suffer too long term on this Azir. Aeon Crystal on a peaceful clear through the jungle as this Ivern. Didn't see him go for any counter jungling shenanigans, and probably just content to let the scaling up occur as normal, especially with Albino Spino already finding their own leads.
Yeah, looking to make it even more here with also Aeon Crystal coming up here, and it's going to be difficult to stop this sort of play. Also the shield coming through, so another kill, another extra value for the side of the Yorick in this position, and he's also getting pushed, so it's not like Sion is going to recover the value from the minions or anything like that. Like, he's just going to get pushed in. There's actually a chance there that you can force a freeze in this position and make the life of the Sion really difficult.
Yeah, shout out to the Salt Mine coming on through with the raid. Already called out the win for Deathmark Napoleon. They qualify for the ACL playoffs. Now tuning into an elimination match where Zero Animosity and Ember Foxes are competing for a chance to qualify tomorrow up against the loser of Mint Gaming and Sin Eternal Season. So far, Zero Animosity winning a 55-minute banger in game number 1 and off to a good start in game number 2 with 2 kills to Albino Spino on the Yorick.
Yeah, great start for a Yorick. If you're a Yorick fan, you're going to enjoy this. If not, you're probably not. But oh, Redsword looking to maybe force the kill here with the ulti.
Nice knock up, no mana on Albino Spino, doing his best to sustain up, gets another last right, and Red Sword will fall. Albino Spino. Can he avoid dropping down to the zombie? One more last rights. No! Shutdown goes to Red Sword.
It really looked like maybe the level up was going to be enough there to keep the life from Albino there, but it's not going to be the case. There is a wave that is going to push into the turret, and also Maiden is going to be lost. But 3-1 to a 1-3 is still to be disclosed is good for the set of Ember Foxes, but we need to remember that that was also a situation where Albino didn't have mana. He was below 50% health, and he still got the kill. That's a scary factor.
Yeah, a lot to be intimidated by there if you do fall to the Yorick in that kind of situation. Last right's a hell of a drug, getting him a lot of health back, and freeze there, but the trade on to Sim seems to go just fine for Samuel. He will continue his farming ways with the backup of the jungle available for Ember Foxes.
Trying to set up something here, and I've liked the way that Aeon Crystal is trying to move around, trying to set up maybe some ganks for the team, or trying to set up the team for success here. And even though he is behind the Rex in this position, I think that the value that he's bringing just by virtue of how the champion works is much more important. Also, they are already trying to get the first dragon of the game. They're going to put them in advantage in terms of the objective, and then they can try and make the move immediately for the grubs, or they can try and play for the grubs having the Yorick already, as there's going to be a slight collapse here.
Yeah, going to be looking to see what they can accomplish here is moving forward on towards the dragon. It's going to get chunked up way lower, and there the smite successfully secured there by the likes of Wonton. Now going to be leading Z-Score on behind. Gets the triple knockup, pokes Slime over the wall, but will be going down one way or the other.
Now we see a bit of a pushing here in the side when he's trying to get the minions. It's not going to matter for Red Sword. He also has the flash still, so he can kind of try and run away. But importantly, they got the dragon. They got 2 kills, or 2 kills in that position. That's really big for the side of Ember Foxes, as flash to try and run away, but I'm not sure if it's worth it.
Not sure either.
Oh, well, okay, it is.
All right, pushed on back. Nearly going to be another kill. Zero Animosity, Inferno Dan gonna get locked down.
Yeah, he's dead.
Climb here, and they will be able to finish him off. It's another kill to the Ember Foxes.
Yeah, surprised that there was not as live and like guess that that may happen at the end there. And another kill for the Ember Foxes, turning around such a bad start in such a good play. I think for the side of Zero Animosity, way too much of a commitment for a play that they didn't even get the dragon at the end. They were forcing so much, and it felt like they wanted to run away before they even forced it. And that just means that now they are back into not only Spur 1, but also being put into a position where they don't even have a good enough lead that it matters in the top lane. Because now top lane is ahead, mid lane is kind of even, but it's better for Sin, and then in the jungle it's much better for the right side.
Yeah, definitely feels like we are in that sort of position. Ember Foxes getting themselves re-solidified in the game off the back of that dragon fight win. I'm looking to see what else they can find. So Albino Spino clears on out another wave here, and Samtiki back over to mid. Try to keep this fight going.
Here as well, Albino keeping the fight going here as well as sending on to Red as well, but that is so much damage that Albino is taking. That being said, probably not going to die though. There's no ultimate on the Sion, and also a big Ivern coming here. They do know that the Ivern is coming though, because they have a ward near the Grok pit, and it's not going to turn into any sort of kill. They're just going to push a wave and back away as normally as possible.
Yeah, there's going to be Zero Animosity going to be getting shoved on in a couple of different waves here. Of course, those grubbies did go the way of them, so looking for an opportunity to push here, but Ember Fox's gold lead definitely going to give them a little bit more room to play with. Albino Spino now chasing forward onto Red Sword. Franco gonna get hit by that last rights. Follow-up trade from Inferno Dan, not really there yet.
I'm honestly surprised that Albino is trying so hard to try and follow the Sion in that position, because he's never going to contest it as effectively. You just need to get the wave and then try and fight with your minions, but in that position you're just going to lose out minions and lose out time over there. Really nice that Ember Foxes have been able to keep on getting this sort of small advantages just off of trying to take advantage of the small miscalculations of their opponents and make it even more valuable here. And maybe you set up a gank here in the top side with the Rek'Sai already coming, and Red Sword also trying to set it up. He has ultimate as well, no flash though.
Yeah, want to be pushed on back here a little bit. Here it comes the likes of Wonton trying to clear things out. Will just be shadowing his top laner for a little while. Knows that Albino Spino running away with this. One of the only ways that things start to go bad in this game, number one.
Yeah, compared to the previous game, has been really quiet in general. Like, yes, there is 7 kills, but the action has been really lackluster compared to the previous game. Not a lot of commitment, not a lot of forcing. Now they are, just as I said.
Coming on in for another place. Lime going to go in for the hook. Inferno Dan going to be able to find a little bit more to kite back out with. They will back on away.
Able to run away, they still have a lot of healing, so it's not like it's going to affect them that much being here. And it was ultimate for ultimate. That being said, having Nautilus ultimate is good, but it's not a main difference maker compared to Alistar's ultimate, where he can survive for a little bit longer if he's able to hit it right.
Ooh, knockup does find its way there on towards Albino Spino. Red Sword and he will exchange some blows. The next dragon coming up here in 20 seconds. You can already see Wonton setting himself up in position for it. And they are taking control over this tri-brush, seeing if they can find an opportunity to punish Inferno Dan and Z-Score.
They're really trying to find the right angle for it, but as long as they don't overcommit, like, I think they just need to farm it out here and not go for the dragon. They already lost the first one. They don't need to go for the second one now. Instead, play for your actually good lane. Play for the top lane here. Try and take down a little bit of the plates as much as possible. That can be a much better play in general for the side of Zero Animosity, yes. They are not able to take down the Sion. Obviously, it's a Sion, but look at the damage that Albino can deal here.
The damage there from Albino Spino. Just making life harder and harder for Red Sword as he gets stronger and stronger in the side lane. And of course, the presence of Wonton towards the bottom of the map means that there is just no chance for him to be able to stay alive. He flashes away from Daisy, ultimate from Inferno Dan to try to help them out, but Albino Spino taking some damage from the turret. Red Sword out of mana,
yeah, the minions.
Out of health, but Albino Spino's taking so much damage from the minions that it's going to have to be a redemption and a back away from Eon Crystal. Maybe a bit of a fumble from Zero Animosity, although Sim did redeploy up towards the top side, and the Dragon's already come and gone. It doesn't look like it's going to harm them too much. Z-Score underneath
Slime
the turret.
has
Slime has
flash.
to flashback away. Franco finding shots onto Inferno. Dan, though, going to be able to force them back with the flash.
It's a flash for flash in that situation. Inferno Dan having to run away a little bit here, but it's not going to be the end of the world. They will lose down this turret, it looks like. And at the end of the day, I think it's pretty equal in general, but having this extra turret in their favor, the first turret blood of the game, for Franco, it's actually going to be really ideal as Iron Crystal getting poked here. It's going to be a lot of damage, and it's not going to be easy to go back there because the Senna had to run away. They have much better control down here on the bot side, and the Rek'Sai just simply going to have a much better time here taking down the red buff.
Yeah, I mean, going for that big play top kind of forfeited everything on this bottom side. The Dragon goes over to Ember Fox's uncontested. The bot lane becomes exposed, gets a bad trade onto them, and they lose the turret. Now they lose their whole bot side jungle. Ember Fox is really taking full control over the bottom quadrant here. And the response from Zero Animosity on the top, because it was so unsuccessful, they don't have an opportunity to cross map for it.
Yeah, the lack of the way that they botched it a little bit really affected how they want to try and push here. And I like the fact that they are trying to repeat, but first take down the turret, then you can take down the Scion, or focus on one of the two. But if you're flip-flopping between both of them, it's not going to work out. As Albino has the flash.
Albino tanking turret again. I mean, he just doesn't have a choice. There's too much damage coming out across, and Red Sword again going to try to force them to take more damage than they intend to. While stacking up
Daisy's down.
the whole way. This time Wonton is coming in on the flank. Do want to be a little bit cautious of the healing potential of Albino Spino, even without the Maiden. But still, that's a lot that they committed up here. That's ultimates from both Albino Spino and the likes of
Inferno Dan.
Crystal. Meanwhile, Inferno Dan soloed out by Franco, showing the power that the Yunara brings to the table, as there's going to be depth charge connected to the other side. Sim, meanwhile, used ultimate to force flash out of Esamuel. They both flashed for each other, it looks like, but Esamuel, the one way worse out on health bars for it. And Ember Fox is still flexing their muscles up on this top side of the map. They're going to use all these resources that they blew to be able to get the Rift Herald.
Yeah, they're just finding the better place in general and taking advantage of the fact that Zero Animosity does not understand that their composition doesn't need to fight at this point. Like, you can play around the Yorick, that's fine, but when you botch that, you don't really need to fight anywhere else. Like, you're not in a place where you can actually force things. You need to wait for your Senna, your Seer to get one or two or three items actually, and then also for the Ivern to get a little bit more supportive. Because right now, yes, he has the redemption, but when he gets the second item, that's when he begins stacking up on a lot of the armor or on the value that the Ivern has. And because he's built is cheap, you don't have to worry about him lacking the gold for it to arrive. Like, you're going to get that eventually, but you need to let that time happen, and Zero Animosity is not really allowing that.
In a clean and well-placed game out of Ember Foxes so far here, well set up for the next play up now. As you can see, they have the Rift Herald already secured. They can use that in mid, use that pressure to get onto Dragon number 3. Here's Red Sword once again getting knockups underneath the turret, making life tough for the team trying to take the tower, but they will finally finish it off. Now Red Sword might be up a little too far, might have given up a little too much. They do finish off the tower in mid. They committed the Rift Herald here, knowing that there's 3 topside, but they aren't going to push for any more. They don't look for a second one. So tower and mid for tower and top plus Red Sword.
Oh, teleport top lane
being channeled. They think they can take a fight here. Can they get up in time? Are they going to look for the dive? Z-Score up here, going to have to flash away from the dredge line. Gets it. There's going to be a shockwave plus dredge line combo. Z-Score gets back in there, finds the knockup, trades his life for slimes, and I just don't think that was worth it.
It's worth it for Zero Animosity. They are getting the kills, they are getting the turret, and they are also pushing on bot side. They actually will find so much value out of this. And like you're mentioning, it's not good for Ember Foxes. They didn't need to force the play so heavily in that position because they were already running away. They took way too long to really come back into that position to follow up onto the side. And then also they had committed previously on the mid lane with the Herald. So they were already doing something, and trying to follow up immediately on that was not going to give them enough time to go for it. They are losing the Dragon though. That is a big loss for the side of Zero Animosity. And this can be game defining for the side of Ember Foxes if they are able to get the Soul. Because Soul plus Yunara plus Orianna, that can be just destroying it off.
Ooh, here comes Wonton looking for the
Inferno
engagement,
Dan.
flashes for it too, but still can't find Inferno Dan. Zero Animosity absorb an engage attempt in mid lane and will continue to hold on. Ember Fox is able to cheat back some of the tempo they lost by going for that topside play, by TPing Red Sword bot. They get themselves the dragon anyway, still on soul point, but Zero Animosity kind of making Ember Foxes look foolish on back-to-back engage attempts.
Yeah, I really feel like they read them really well in that position. The only problem though is that because they are going to fight now in the next 4 minutes, since Soul is going to be an objective that they cannot give up, they need to try and get as much gold as possible in that time frame. They need to have Senna in 2 items, they need to have Azir in 2 items, and they need to have Ivern in 2 items as well. Those are power spikes that they can play with. The main problem though is that Franco is going to be 3 items, and that is a scary prospect to really try and fight for. And then if they don't go for Infernal Dragon, which can be a choice for Ember Foxes, they can just trade it for Atakan and try and get that objective instead.
Well, Ember Fox is still in a favorable position on the map, still with a solid gold lead, and still with 3 dragons to their name, be able to make the macro play all the much more easier for them. Still going to be eyes on Albino Spino, the side lane threat that he represents, but he really doesn't have too tremendous of a gold lead, as you can see here. He's only up about 300 for all of the work that's been poured into him on this top side.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from the fact that he has died one time, and also that he couldn't kill more times Red Azure. Like, he tried, but because of the botch dives, the lack of actually well-played attempts in that position, and because the minions actually mess up the turret aggro so frequently, it just made it really difficult for him to be able to consistently go for that. Now he's going for the Sion strat, and I think this is a much better choice, because now you're forcing the Sion to either be stuck with you or have to follow you up in a bad spot. And they are also taking down the mid lane turret on the side of Zero Animosity. Overall, really nice couple of plays. They can actually look for Sion here if they are able to block the path.
They're going to kind of have to. I mean, not really getting the advantage out of the dirty farming here, because Red Sword can go and do the same. In fact, he has an even easier time because there is no outer turret that he has to worry about, and he'll tank these up all day. He doesn't care.
Yep.
So, kind of having a net zero impact. Oh, that is going to be the unstoppable onslaught blocked by Spino, and Red Sword will flash away from the procession. Meanwhile, the rest of his team have started up on towards the Otacon. Slime just doing his best to buy time, and he buys enough to cash out. The Otacon is secured for Ember Fox's Spider-Man on his way to safety. Slime might even be able to get out of this one. They continue to hunt him down, but he continues to dredgeline his way out to safety, and Ember Foxes successfully get everybody out. Heist completed. Zero Animosity with nothing to show for it.
Yeah, nothing to worry about if you're Zero Animosity or if you're Ember Foxes there, because you lost absolutely nothing. You get the objective, you get the out of that position, and the Sion doesn't even die. He does blow flash, but overall, it's just find the value that you were looking for. And once again, I think Yunara is back in here for his her third item. That's going to be extremely powerful for this next dragon fight. Like, that really can just be the game-defining moment when you have a Yunara that is this strong, and there's not a lot of tools to try and stop her. Like, even her flash and barrier are still up, so you need to find a perfect angle to really catch her out, or to be able to kill the team before she kills you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the former not really an option with the Senna Ivern composition, in my opinion. But here is another pick coming through. Eon Crystal is found and might be shut down, but the healing is enough to keep
heals, I told you.
And now maybe Ember Foxes have overplayed their hand. Slime will be locked down and will be finished off by Samuel. Albino Spino is TP.
Look at the angle here.
Looking to lock him down with the procession. Once into the back line, get on towards Sim, who's desperately trying to create the space that he needs. Red Sword by time
just not enough, though.
Spino will be finished up, but Red Sword is so tanky. He just keeps the fight going for as long as it takes. Another Soul Furnace will keep him alive, and Ember Foxes will disengage, trading 1-for-1 support for top laner. It's all that they planned for all along.
The counter bait there, and I'm not even sure how the hell did they not kill Sim in that position. A missed E sadly means that there's not enough damage there to kill the Orianna, but all in all, a pretty equal trade for how it looked like it started. That's the problem though with a little bit of Zero Animosity's composition at this point. They have the healing, they don't have the damage. And even though they can survive for really long, they cannot take down targets for really long or quickly enough. And that's a really big problem to try and play around with as. Oh,
yeah.
Red Reservoir is so tanky, by the way.
To pump out the damage, and Isamuel is who is going to need to be huge in this fight.
Rek'Sai.
There's going to be, whoa, Wonton into the back line, finding the critical target, Isamuel. I mean, picking him off is certainly one way to win the fight, but puts himself at great risk in order to do so. They're trying to find the knockups. They need to get Red Sword out of here. Isamuel able to slip back over the wall, but Eon Crystal's already fallen. So is Z-Score. Shuffle back only delays the inevitable. Ember Foxes, 4-for-0. Will secure themselves Dragon's Soul in game number 2.
Yeah, and you begin to question yourself into what the hell were they doing in the previous game to not be able to close out when they had the leads. But this time around, they are playing it much better. They are finding the right leads. They are finding the right angles for a fight, and they are playing it off really, really well. Front-to-back team fighting, really comfortable for Franco to just run through everyone however the hell he wants, and also able to lock down multiple targets and win the important fights when they matter. The objective control was also really, really good this game by Wonton, and I think that made a difference in how they were trying to approach it.
Now, Albino Spino once again finding an isolated battle with Red Sword. Can he finish off this Scion? So much health, so much armor, so much survivability, and no way to actually finish him off. And it's again Wonton covering for his top laner deep into the game. 0-0-7 James Bond scoreline for our boy Wonton, who has just done his job this game, constantly been shadowing any attempted plays and kept his team in the lead since they first won that dragon fight.
Yeah, kind of funny that they got that first dragon fight and he never got any kills from that. Like, it actually went into the right people consistently, and even though he has done a really good job, the right people got the kills. The Orianna and the Yunara got the actual value, and that's what you really cared about in general.
The thing to look for in these upcoming fights, I mean, obviously Soul is huge for Ember Foxes. Isamuel does have his Blighting Jewel now. And, yep, you can see that damage really pumping up once he has that available. Does manage to trade 1-for-1 there.
Albino may be dead, though.
Oh, dealing with Franco. Does have the backup going for Franco. Franco kites it out, turns it back, and finishes off both parries, staying alive the whole day long. Franco outplays in mid lane to shut down Zero Animosity.
Turns out having 3 items, Flash and Barrier, works out massively well to try and survive for as long as possible. And he's also recovering a huge amount of play here, because after getting the kill onto Slime and what was looking like potentially dying in that position and giving up control of the map, they just now get Baron buff, more than likely will push for the end of the game or get Elder, and then close it out. Ideally a little bit sooner than 50 minutes, because I don't think their composition should arrive at that point, but so far it has worked out massively for them. And Reservoir still just being a consistent, bothersome champion here for Albino. Albino has not been able to do anything after getting those first soul kills.
Hey, remember when I said Red Sword would not be able to be the side lane answer to Albino Spino? That is not the case this game. Red Sword has done a fine job at answering Albino Spino and is in fact drawing the pressure of the jungler. This is the opposite of how you want these kind of split push matchups to go. Let's see if they can make it work, because there's a TP channeled from Sim towards the mid lane. Ember Foxes are going to try to take a whole damn inhibitor for this. Lock down his Red Sword. They will be able to finish him off. Albino Spino gets the kill, and they got to get back. But Red Sword is going to slow them down, clearing out the waves, stopping Albino Spino from keeping his push going. They will finish it off. They're recalling their Ivern, and
maybe they can finally kill this turret.
Base on the side of Ember Foxes. This is going to be worth it for Zero Animosity.
If they take down the turret, yes, but now they do actually take it. Albino has to run away from here, though. He's staying too long. He's actually going to get collapsed in here. Slime has no flash, actually, so maybe they are not going to be able to stop Albino.
Nope.
Not enough on time. That could have been close, but...
Did not throw out depth charge. I wanted to see if we were going to have the full map depth charge. We did not.
True. Could have been funny, but at the end doesn't come through with that. They do get the turret, they get the kill, and they get a little bit of hope. But that hope probably will die in 2 minutes, because the Elder is coming up in 2 minutes.
I mean, an 8k gold lead to Ember Foxes at this stage should be enough to close out the game. And very, very clean performances from this center trio for Ember Foxes. The 2 carries and the jungler all at 0 deaths. all have played their roles perfectly so far. It's got to be Samuel and Albino Spino, the solo laners from Zero Animosity, showing up, be able to keep them in this game, but it's just so difficult from this kind of deficit. You're hoping for a mistake.
A mistake or time, like maybe not, like you don't need to wait for them to make a big mistake, but if they are able to keep you at the very least 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes, so that you can get your items on the important members, that way you can kind of turn it around. But once again, the problem is that the Elder is coming up in 1 minute. That's such a big difference maker that you're not going to be able to get that time to turn it around.
Zero Animosity, can you create another 55-minute banger? That is the question. Samuel gonna have to find ways to clear out these waves, already losing an inhibitor turret. And Ember Foxes will back away, will regroup, will move their pressure down towards the bottom. Baron buff about to expire, but they get good value off of that, taking down another inhibitor, another inner turret. Meanwhile, Albino Spino looking to get an inner on his own up on the top side. Red Sword going over to respond, but it might be too late. Yeah, Albino Spino gonna get this.
Yeah, he gets the value here, at the very least responding equally with...
Yeah, Crystal just gets one shot as they find him in rotation between waves. Samuel,
and that is 20 seconds away from Elder. That is such a big loss in this position. Now they cannot, absolutely not fight for Elder at all.
They should not be able to. See if Ember Foxes are going to be there in time. They will be. And yeah, the objective bounty helps Zero Animosity a little bit, but it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back, as that pick out of their jungler means that this is Elder buff to Ember Foxes, and they should have every opportunity to end with it.
Yeah, it just looks like it's going to more than likely be the end of the game after this, because they have Elder, they have not Baron buff, but they have all the pushing power in their favor, and they have a Yunara that is 4.5 items. More than likely, she's going to be 5 items or 4.5 items here in this back. So who actually is going to stop her at this point? Nobody can get on top of her, nobody can actually out damage her, and nobody can also push her back into your team. So you're just going to eventually die.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, how will they be able to try to hang on to this one? They need to keep these waves cleared out, and they need to avoid an engage angle from Slime, Red Sword, or Wonton. Doing their best to stay grouped together, to lay down these bush lines, and to just poke with as much power as they can.
Oh, instantaneously.
Wow, all right. Well, right in there, Samuel is out, and this should be it for Ember Foxes. They rampage through the fight, close it out according to game plan. Albino Spino TPs into the back line, trying his best to cut the wave, but I think this is done for. The turret will be finished off, and Ember Foxes do not say die. They will take us to a game number 3 against Zero Animosity. And we will have one more bout between these two teams to find out who is eliminated and who stays alive for a shot tomorrow at playoffs.
Yeah, trying to kill the everlasting tradition of 2-0 series in the broadcast, and hey, it worked. Now we're going to 3 games, and huge props to how they turned around. I would say particularly the main difference here has to come off of how Sim played and also how Wonton played it. Because I think that having more value out of your jungler in this sense, having your mid laner actually not losing most of the traits and having an impact in the side lane and also in some of the team fights was really crucial. Because Franco played, I would say, similar to the previous game, where he was essentially the main carry, did most of the damage and did most of the value for what the team was looking for, and then the other parts stepped up to what they needed to do.
Yeah, really strong game from Franco. Really strong game, I think, from Wonton as well. Kind of a little bit uncelebrated. Goes 0-0 and whatever on that Rek'Sai at the end of the day. But a really good performance to stop anything unexpected from going down in this game. Was constantly able to respond to the top side ganks. Was able to exert pressure on the bottom lane, keep this Yunara ahead, and was able to secure all of those early objectives, and each one compounded into the next, making it harder and harder for any kind of successful play to be manifested by the likes of Zero Animosity.
Yeah, it just meant that after a certain point, it was kind of close to impossible for the side of Zero Animosity to really turn it around. And like we were saying, they needed more time, but the problem is that time was running out because they were never in a position to really by themselves more. Like if they got that first dragon of the game, where they lost essentially the game, I would say, that could have at the very least bought them 4 more minutes where Elder was not spawning, and they can try and turn around the situation from there. But because they just lost objective after objective after objective after objective, they never really had the time to prep their composition for what they needed to do.
Absolutely here. Some other updates from around the league. Sin Eternal Season and Mint Gaming going to a game number 3 of their own, as this group continues to prove that it is one of the closest possible GSLs that we could have drawn, both series going the max distance. Meanwhile, over in the Karma group, GCS Challengers take a 2-0 win over Calamity Black, eliminating Calamity Black and giving themselves a shot up against the other Calamity team to qualify for playoffs. Is Prosperity x APM take a 2-0 over Calamity Esports to qualify themselves for playoffs.
Yeah, so it's not a civil war against between the Calamity teams over there, but it's going to be a fun one still. Credit to GCS Challengers, and going to be a lot of defining series yet to be played. Obviously, we need to finish this one because one more game, either team can take it, either team can save themselves or be eliminated, and it's just one game away from that.
Yeah, looking forward to what tomorrow will hold, but looking forward to what this next game is going to hold for us as well, as either of these teams could move on and compete for a playoff spot. We're going to throw it to a quick break here, but do want to once again shout out Zen Market, your one-stop solution for buying products directly from Japan. They'll help you buy items from over 10,000 shops, as well as place bids on auctions on your behalf. They'll even consolidate all your items safely into one box and can ship internationally. They provide excellent customer services in 19 languages, which is why Zen Market is trusted by over 2 million users worldwide. Check out the panel below the stream or click the link in chat to try them out now. If you sign up with promo code Aegis, you'll get 1,000 yen off your first international shipping fee. In addition, check out the special viewer giveaway by typing !giveaway in the chat for your chance to win a Nintendo 64. Thank you once again to Zen Market, and we will see you all after a short break.
game, like you're mentioning, contested until the end. They were fighting to the nail, both sides. Really, either team could have taken it. Could have been actually an Ember Foxes 2-0, if not for a couple of things. But then on the second game, felt like Ember Foxes just found their groove much more quickly. They got what they needed to for them to be able to just run over the side of Animosity. It did take 30 minutes, but at the end, they just run them over. And it really felt like that.
Yeah, absolutely here. And with that, going to be a third game, a third fearless draft. Plenty of champions for both teams taken off the board. We talked about these odd jungle pools and how they're going to get pushed to their limits here in a 3-game situation. We are in that category now. We got to see the Rek'Sai out of Wonton. We got to see the Ivern out of Eon Crystal. Zero Animosity moves back to the red side. Ember Fox is back to the blue. See what they are going to use to see if they can close out this series and keep themselves alive in ACL for summer 2025.
Yeah, and they've been pretty consistent in terms of the bans that they've been going for. A lot of Syndra attention, a lot of Talia attention, and a lot of attention towards the Akali as well. They've been going for the first ban. So maybe this time around, we do see a little bit of more variation towards that as well. One thing I'm surprised we haven't seen, or that we haven't seen much attention to, is the Sejuani, for example, because even though she wasn't in the original trifecta we mentioned about in terms of the junglers, she's still a really high priority jungler in what she can accomplish and the value of forcing teamfights to happen. So I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen her much at all.
Could be an option. It is what they want to go for. The bans are getting started here. We'll see what the bans are going to be. It's going to be Talia to start things off, looking like for the likes of Ember Foxes. See how many of their bans stay the same throughout the series, and the Akali going to continue to be blocked away from Sim.
Yep, going to take it away once again, essentially, like they've done consistently. And a lot of the other focus that they have been putting in the mid lane has been that Syndra ban. So maybe this time around they go for it as well in that situation. But they are taking more time now to try and decide that, yeah, the Syndra looking to be the next ban. So keeping it up for the 3 remaining games. And Varus also feels like now has to be another priority ban to try and go for, because yes, changes may have happened, but he's still such a bothersome champion to deal with down there in the bot lane. And I feel like so far with their performances, Franco deserves a really big attention point on the side of Zero Animosity, because he's been carrying the side of Ember Foxes really effectively.
Early Sivir ban directed towards Inferno Dan, trying to keep his pool as pinched as they can.
Yep.
No rhyme intended there, as they are going to potentially take away the Varus here, but it would get left up if they choose to ban the Cassante right here, right now, and it will be the Cassante ban. Franco could get the Varus here on blue 1.
There another
really only the lethality build that is nerfed. I think you could still go for it.
I think Varus here makes the most sense. It's one of the priority champions, the bot lane, and attack speed Varus, I've always thought that is one of the better options to go for anyway. So yeah, looking like that's going to be the pick, and makes complete sense. I think the champion is still really strong, and laning wise, like, he has very little matchups where he suffers or he loses. Like, I don't even think he has one where he loses. I don't think he has one where he suffers as much anyway. So I think that is probably the best option to go for. The Annie I like for the point and click value, especially trying to lock down a champion with no ability like the Varus, but then you need something in the bot lane as well to be able to go against it. And I like the fact that you're going for a hyper carry. I was fine with Aphelios, Jinx, or something in that vein, or maybe something like a Caitlyn and try and play off of your range, but ideally Aphelios, Jinx look to be the priority picks for me here.
Yeah, and this is going to make Inferno Dan very important in this game. You know, we talked about both of these teams really want to emphasize playing as a unit, not focusing on one specific carry, not having only one style to play through. But, oh boy, is it a little dicey, at least feels a little dicey, to have Esamuel kind of off of the autonomous carry picks where he can be the big difference maker. The Annie, a little one-dimensional in my view, and it's really going to be Inferno Dan who has to show up now in this game number 3. Well, he's valuable, but Ember Foxes, if they don't give him the massive 5-man timbers, it's going to be hard to be the big solo performer that carries the game, especially now that this Galio gets locked in for the likes of Ember Foxes. Sim likely going to be piloting that one in the mid lane.
Yeah, going to be taking the Galio in the mid lane, going to try and make it so that he doesn't have to do much to go against the Annie. You can just face tank the value from the magical damage and that's it. Also can be flexed around, so not much to really think about the champion. Actually, now looking at the Galio makes me think that we haven't seen Rumble either at all this series, which is,
Nope.
again, surprising. But with some of the picks that did come through here, I'm not expecting to see the Rumble just yet. Particularly more on Zero Animosity, because you already have the Annie, so the Galio kind of feels a little bit counterintuitive in that sense. But Ember Foxes could technically still go for the Galio if they think that they have a good opportunity to try and pull it off. And the Braum here, I really like it for the denial potential against some of the Phyllis's damage value. And then also in case there's a great engage potential from the side of Zero Animosity, the disengage value from the Braum is really, really good. Especially now with that Jarvan 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Gallia is still good into the Jarvan 4. I think the Braum's good into the Jarvan 4 as well. So Zero Animosity really betting down on Eon Crystal's experience on the pick here. And, you bring up a good point with the Rumble. I mean, neither of these top laners are really Rumble players. No games of Rumble from anybody on either of these teams so far this season. And it doesn't look like that's going to change this time around. Zero Animosity looking to really pinch the jungle pool, though, up against Wonton. He loses the Xin Zhao, loses the Vi, the Jarvan is picked, Fearless away, our Wukong Pantheon, Rek'Sai, and Ivern. What can he go for now? The Nocturne's still one that he's played that's up and available. It's good with the Galio. I wouldn't mind it here.
Yeah, and you also have, I really value the Paranoia here because it does take away a little bit also of the potential engage from the side of Zero Animosity. Since if you turn down the lights, there's going to be very difficult situation to really try and look for the barriers between 3 members that are really tanky ass. The Tristana getting picked here. So is this an Annie support actually?
It might be an Annie support. I think that might be what we're getting shown here.
That's an interesting choice.
Could be innovating right before our very eyes if that is the call.
It's actually Annie jungle like Jarvan support.
Spino on some crazy top lane marksman. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But it does appear to be an Annie support, at least at first glance. Looking at the Kindred, I love Kindred.
I really like Kindred here.
Showing here. Really nicely done by Wonton. Going to take advantage of this front line. And now to round things out, they just need something in the top lane that can withstand whatever crazy stuff Albino Spino's going to throw at it. Gragas fits that bill. Looking at it for Red Sword. And Ember Foxes, I think, navigate this draft quite well. I like what they've found for themselves here.
Yeah, with the one last pick potentially here, it is going to be more than likely that Annie in the support position. Like you're mentioning, I think they played it off really nicely with what they were given, and especially that curveball that they sent with the Tristana in that position. Probably one of the better choices was going to be opt into this Kindred Gragas duo, and then having this potential with the Lamb's Respite plus also the reposition potential from the Gragas ultimate makes it so that team fights from Ember Foxes are going to be quite good to try and manage around. The Galio is the only thing that I'm kind of a little bit weird on in terms of how it's going to be played, because yes, you can kind of hero's entrance onto the Kindred and make it so that you keep her alive longer, but you want to have that Galio be able to get into the backline as well because of the taunt potential and the hero's entrance value, and the only one that really can do that is the Gragas. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic in how they are going to try and approach that and how they are going to play that. But overall, really like the Ember Fox's composition. And then Zero Animosity, I feel like their task here is go in, burst barriers, and then play the rest of the fight. If it works, great. If not, we tried.
Yeah, it does feel like what they're indexed into here. They can also play the side lane again through Albino Spino and the Gwen if they see good opportunities, if they get a good lead. Of course, Gragas is the great equalizer. He will look to make this lane go even up against virtually any opponent. I don't think the Gwen is going to be any exception here. Is a fine matchup into the Gragas, can at least immune some of those barrels, but that's not going to be enough to force the Gragas out of lane and really build yourself up a substantial advantage. And as Zero Animosity indexed into a hard engage comp, it feels like, with the Annie Jarvan up against an Ember Fox's comp that is entirely built to kite back.
It just really feels like their idea to try and affront this felt like it's the more damage we have, the better it's going to look. But I think that Ember Fox's composition did try to at the very least have a little bit of mix up that can work out really well. Only thing that they may be lacking is a straight up magical damage dealer, but since there's no real tanks on the side of Zero Animosity, that doesn't feel like it's going to affect that much. Now, another thing to really consider from Zero Animosity's composition is that they are running double AD carry. So objectives, pushes, and also late game wise, they should be much stronger. Yes, technically Kindred is a double AD carry, but she's not going to be going into the IE's what is the name? The Kraken Slayers. Those items that really spike up the more items you have. She's going to be going for a little bit more on hit or life. What is the name of the actual way of building it? Well, so a more different approach than that. So I don't think that it's going to feel the same level of just destruction potential than the Tristana and the Aphelios in that situation. And I think that may be the slight advantage that Zero Animosity can have later on in the game.
Yeah, that is where we want to see Zero Animosity trying to take advantage. If they can build themselves up these side lane leads, if they can scale up on these marksmen, could make a big difference and could give them the angle to be able to move on in the ACL and eliminate Ember Foxes here and now. Z-Score busting out Annie's support in game number 3, a pick that we have not seen in years, at least that I haven't seen in years. Will it be enough to take Zero Animosity to the next round? Still keeping my eyes peeled for that other matchup to get some results. See who their opponent will be, as Sin Eternal Season and Mint Gaming are still playing their game number 3 as we speak.
Yeah, everyone here is still playing their game number 3. Everyone still have something to give us in terms of the surprise that may come through or just expected result, and also in terms of what is going to happen with both of these teams. But for the last game, for a decider to opt into going for any support, I think you have to have how to put it without saying anything that I shouldn't say. You have to be really like strong-minded to be able to pull it off like this, because it's a champion that I don't think C-Score has played at all season long. It's a champion that, like you're mentioning, hasn't been playing so long in the support position, and it feels like the more time passed, she was being catered more towards the mid lane in terms of instead of the support. And I think that big change up pushed people away, but there's still room for the Annie support to come through, and I want to see C-Score being able to pull it off.
Yeah, I don't think this is a terrible angle for it. I mean, the lane that they end up in, not too bad. Does feel like if Inferno Dan gets tagged by a Winter's Bite or something, it might be a little hard if Annie doesn't have stun stacked up to really be able to make a lot of value for Zero Animosity. They might just take losing trades in those sorts of scenarios. So playing wisely around the Annie stun timer is going to be a very critical part of this laning phase for the likes of the Ember Foxes. But I agree. I think this, could be a laning phase that they can get through, and then having that stun, having that damage, having that burst can be very, very good for the likes of Zero Animosity, especially in 2025, where supports get a little bit more money, they get a little bit more damage, they get some items to actually play with, they get to, complete a legendary item, can get that Malignance or something to really pump out a fair bit of magic damage, maybe even help out Albino Spino. All in all, can definitely be effective. Can see how it would work out for Zero Animosity.
Also, having a point and click stun onto any member in the map is always great to have, and pretty much the most straightforward way to engage that Zero Animosity has to be that point and click CC from the Annie plus the ultimate from the Jarvan, obviously. But it's one of those angles where in the support position, I feel like you're more willing to throw away your flash, and that means that if you throw away your flash and you blow the flash from the enemy AD carry, then you have another tool to try and engage with. Where I think in the mid lane, where you are lacking another damage dealer and you have to take that cover up or that run as another damage dealer, if you blow your flash away, if you botch your engage, if you fail in some sort of way with the Annie in the mid lane, it feels more impactful. Where I think in the support it feels more lenient, and it allows you to be a little bit more risky with the way that you want to play it.
Does Zero Animosity looking to see if they can execute this composition and earn themselves their first series win of the 2025 Summer ACL. Show that 6th seed for this stage was a fluke. Had they been able to play that series against GCS challengers, perhaps they would not have ended up in this position. Ember Foxes have won some series, have taken some good upsets throughout this season so far. They were able to take down Komodo. They were able to take a game off Prosperity. Now looking to see if they can stay in the competition for at least one more day, get themselves one more shot, be able to make the ACL playoffs, to be able to come back next week and compete in that double elim bracket. Very, very close series so far between these two teams. And it all coming down to just one more game and these two compositions. Who's going to be able to execute?
Yeah, maybe more so game 1 than game 2, but certainly trying to make it a closer series that a lot of people have expected. And I feel like that goes a lot with Zero Animosity all season long so far, because for the most part we've seen a lot of series that go the whole way with them, because they were able to push the other teams to a good amount of like hardships during the game. Sometimes it works out great and you're able to have great game 1s where they are putting a lot of pressure on the enemy team, and then there's times where with game 2 where they commit a lot of early mistakes and that kind of snowballs out of control. And I feel like Zero Animosity also is a team that is not scared to force plays, which makes them more volatile and more impacted by messing up consistently, which I think happened a lot in the second game, really.
Yeah, I mean, these are definitely teams that maybe once they have the momentum, once they have set up in their favor, they can usually play things out pretty by the book.
Yep.
But definitely have shown that they are susceptible to overforcing for fights, prioritizing kills over maybe some of those objectives, and that has cost both of these teams throughout this series, right? Trying to push for a little bit extra, ending up giving up some of the timers that they could have used to their advantage to really cement themselves a more significant lead, and oftentimes chasing for these fights that have not ended up with favorable outcomes for them. Sometimes that's cost the game, sometimes it has not. That's definitely something we saw at Ember Fox's last game, even while 8K up, maybe prioritizing some fights, trying to take some angles that were not really manifesting. Did not end up changing the game, but they do that on this composition. It could give Zero Animosity an opportunity to find success on a comp that feels like it should be stylistically disfavored against all this disengage that Ember Foxes have for themselves.
It's just straight up going into your face and trying to kill you, into we just don't want to fight you and we can just run away. I like the fact that we've seen a good mix up between styles in the whole series. I think there were straight up 5v5, a little bit of attention towards side laning, late game scaling, poking with mages, then disengage and engage. So I like the mix up that we've seen from both of these teams, and it does show a good variety in terms of what they can try and accomplish in some of these compositions.
Absolutely. Here we are on to Summoner's Rift, game number 3, elimination on the line. Ember Foxes and Zero Animosity going toe-to-toe for the third time this evening. This time it is Eon Crystal, far up in this bush, knows that Wonton is there, but without the tools, perhaps, to really be able to force in too much. Throws down.
It is a level 1 Jarvan.
D-Score's going to find the stun. They will get a chunk on about half. Should be Wonton walking out of this, no problem. Still, early vision for Zero Animosity. We saw that out of this in game number 1. And they do it again to get that early vision advantage.
So good trade there. It does mean that they get the ward inside of the enemy jungle. One thing though here is that because they did blow that early stun from the Annie, that means that in lane, that's not going to be a factor until level 2. So it's what you get right from out of that trade. Is it, do you value more damage that you dealt into the Kindred and the ward, or do you value more what you're going to be able to accomplish in lane? Because now you pretty much lost level 1 from the Annie. Like, she's not going to be the same value here.
No, you will not. So, Slime clearing out into the bottom lane alongside Franco, beginning their lane phase up against this Annie support, something that they probably have not seen in a long time, if ever. See how they're going to be able to navigate the laning phase in this matchup. Samuel also getting that early push in up against Sim, expecting to see that for quite a while in the Tristana Galio matchup.
They are trading heavily onto that Annie, and yeah, the Tristana Galio matchup is going to feel a little bit sad for Sim, if not really sad, because essentially all that you were hoping to try and deny is going to be completely irrelevant here, because you're not going to deny any sort of physical damage in that sense. And then also looking at the top lane, great trades by Albino, and with the way that the game is going, 3 pushing lanes means that there's a bit of angle here for Frey and Crystal to try and go into the jungle and maybe try and mess up the Kindred early on. That's a good way to try and make it so that their composition doesn't really spike super early.
Yeah, certainly going to be tough to invade and get some of those marks in this early stage. If that's how these lanes continue to play out, want to see if they can do any work to deny the first spawn on the Scuttle Crabs here. Probably hoping for a successful coin flip as Eon Crystal is on the bottom side here with Wonton on the top. Eon Crystal praying for a bot lane roll, Wonton for a top. See who the RNG gods favor today.
Yeah, looking a little bit onto what else they're going to try and achieve here. Pretty standard movements all around the map. They are trying to get here onto Inferno Dan, but nothing really accomplished in this position. And importantly here, the wave is pushing a little bit into the side of Zero Animosity with a gank timing for the Jarvan, and Annie close to hitting that last point of the stun here. So maybe the setup here can work out. She does have flash as well. They are looking for it really aggressively in the bot lane.
On the top side, the gods favor Ember Foxes today. We'll go over towards the likes of Wonton. First mark achieved. Now hovering for Albino Spino. Wants to see if they can get Red Sword to bait something in here. He's got to be careful though. At under 500 HP. Here comes Wonton trying to get this fight started. Does connect the Mounting Dread onto Albino Spino. Forced to flash back away. Going to chase for some more. Nice block there from Slime. Stops the Gravitum from reaching Franco, but he's going to take a lot of damage himself for it. Return fire once again. Franco doing his best to see what kind of harassment they can find. But that is a win for Inferno Dan and Z-Score. The Annie damage really making a difference there.
Yeah, and the stun also really clutch to stop Franco from following up on the initial attempt there by Slime. That meant that nothing was really going to be forced as effectively as they were trying to make it happen there. As it's connected.
Slime found onto Inferno Dan, looking for that stun. They will get it. Cleanse going to be forced out. Inferno Dan responding with the Gravitum Inferno combo to get the damage back onto Slime, and Z-Score with the stun stacked up, making this duo look dangerous. Rolling over Wonton, who will be spotted on this control ward.
Yeah, doesn't get the full bounty there, but seen going on to his ammo, but there is multiple members in the mid lane and the bot lane. They are going to get stopped immediately by Z-Score. I like the attempt though. I like that we're seeing both junglers actually not staying quiet and trying to go for certain ganks.
Yeah, flash and heal both used by Inferno Dan and Z-Score there to stay alive in the face of another gank from Wonton. It's sliding over the wall is Eon Crystal. Wants to see what he can do. Try to develop a little bit of an advantage, slowing down his own control ward, trying to steal away camps and be one step ahead of Wonton's clear.
Yeah, and with this sort of advantage that now Ember Fox's bot lane have, they have no flash or cleanse onto the AD carry. That means that any time that maybe Slime can get on top of the Aphelios, that can just turn into a pretty comfortable kill. Really nice buffer there.
Yeah, really good block from Eon Crystal, but Sim is
go for this.
Turn fire right onto him, taking him below half. Wonton looking to chase as well. Isemwell, though, returning fire with the explosive shot. Will be able to push them back. They do not feel confident chasing for any more. Will be low health bars on Sim and Eon Crystal.
The value out of having an AD carry in the mid lane to push away someone that is coming, but really nice how Zim has been playing this. Even though he is behind in CS, I think he's been doing a really good job at trying to deny the Tristan in this position, as Samuel gets stunted, but not enough to be able to get picked off.
Everybody just a little bit too tanky to end up falling down.
Yep.
And 6 minutes 30 seconds in, no kills in this game number 3. A faint lead, Zero Animosity gold wise. Nobody starting on off the dragon yet either. We are less than a minute to go, or a little bit over a minute to go rather, on the spawn of the grubs. And once again, it's going to be a move towards Albino Spino. Nice,
great ulti.
Red Sword pushes Albino Spino far out of position, and the flash was blown on an earlier gank. Unless Albino Spino can turn this one back around. Looking for the likes of Wonton, and first blood to Albino Spino in a 1 versus 2. Chops him down.
It turns out that Flash is an overvalued summoner because not even needed to try and force the play there. There was no Flash even on Wanton either, so no ultimate, no Flash, no way to escape. And that means that for the first time, even though they wanted to kill this win, they found such a good angle to counterattack, and it's a first blood onto Wanton. Nothing to do for the Kindred, and they also lost the Dragon. So once again, oh, Sin
forcing a play onto Sim as well. Cataclysm going to force the Flash out of the mid laner. Red Sword on the back foot in the one-on-one. Dragon went over to Eon Crystal, who is pushing further, finding Wanton off the respawn, shoving him off his own red. Inferno, Dan, and Z-Score in a favorable position to the bottom lane. They're going to send over Z-Score for a little support on this invade. Nice flash over the Justice Punch. Slime looking for backup for the rest of the team, too. This has been
but they did get the red buff.
Taking control.
And even though Wanton did get pushed away a little bit, he does get the red buff. He is able to get level 6 and not necessarily die in that position. Plus, they also are able to force away a little bit of the pressure inside of the jungle. That being said, losing that play in the top lane really made a lot of difference because it allowed Jarvan to get a lot of movements down there in the bot side, get the first dragon, and now maybe even set up for a potential move towards the Grobs up here in the top lane. One thing we haven't noticed much though is either of these teams really moving their bot lane to try and go for the Grobs up there in the top side. Like, we haven't seen a lot of movements early on from the bot lanes to try and go for the objectives. Instead, just playing a straight up bot lane and hoping that it works out really well, or at the very much moving them to the mid lane.
Yeah, backing on away now. After another tough trade in the top lane is Red Sword. Going to need to get some of that mana back, going to be able to pick up the Catalyst. Has, of course, avoided falling down, as is the nature of the Gragas, but that kill onto Albino Spino, providing much needed relief for the Gwen. Be able to scale up and be a threat later on. The Grubs are up and available, and it is Eon Crystal working on them off of the pressure their lanes have provided. You called this out earlier on, and it is making life a little bit tough for Wanton.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many stacks does he have currently, probably 1 or 2, but it's not the kind of style that you want to be forced into with a Kindred. You want to be able to get your marks, you want to be able to put a little bit more pressure inside of the enemy jungle, and try and have a little bit more attention down there as well. But this bot lane, the change up from the Annie really has made a difference here, because even though you want to see trades from Franco and Slime, they are just simply pushed away and not able to really accomplish much because of it. Oh,
here's an engage being forced in mid, and Sim taking a boatload of damage there. Gets hit by the Buster shot, nearly ends up falling. Will at the very least be forced out of lane. Wanton going to cover for him for a little bit. Zero Animosity continue to flex their muscles in these one-on-ones.
A big difference compared to the previous game, I think, because top lane did go this way, but mid lane and bot lane was looking way harsher on them. And this time around, they're doing a much better job at being able to put pressure. They are doing a much better job at winning trades, and they're doing a much better job at allowing for the jungler to really collapse on some of these plays and getting a lot of space and time. So this time around, they are able to get more value in general.
Yeah, I mean, a stronger lane composition, and they're showing up in these lanes, finding success across the board. CS leads in both solo lanes, pretty substantial ones at that, especially for Well, who has had a fantastic series tonight for Zero Animosity, and is looking to keep that one going on this Tristana, close to their first item spike.
And that's going to make the life of the Galio really difficult. Galio also forced into going armor, which means that he essentially is kind of pigeonholed into a spot where he has to try and survive for the damage from the Tristana, but he also is not surviving the damage of the Tristana. He actually is taking a huge amount of damage each trade, so it makes it really difficult for him to not only clear waves, but also just be able to survive long enough. And he's really far behind in terms of CS as well.
Yeah, gonna be tough to going up here. I mean, the armor will serve him well as the game goes on. It'll be good into the Jarvan, it'll be good into the Aphelios, but yeah, certainly not the kind of build that sets you up later on. It doesn't let you scale your passive the way that the magic resistance does. Don't get good use out of the magic shield. Why it's good to pick champions like this into these sorts of matchups. And Sim kind of relegated to a little bit more of a supportive position this game. Needs Franco and Wanton to be the big carries. Needs to just be able to kite for them and let them find success in the team fights.
Yeah, as long as they are able to find those sort of success in the team fights, it should work out for them really effectively. And having an affiliate that is at the very least serviceable at this point of the game with one item, having a Tristana that is one item as well, essentially every member, bar the jungler and the support, all in one item is going to be really ideal for them. Also, objective-wise, they've controlled every objective in the game so far, and more than likely kind of looking for that in the second dragon, although Jarvan is topside, so this could be a good opportunity for Ember Foxes to finally get control of the dragon.
Could be if they are able to piece it together. Sim going on forward, going to be able to get this CC onto Esam well. He's going to be able to rocket jump back away and try and just get these chunks down in anticipation of the upcoming dragon. Ember Foxes could buy themselves a lot of time if they're able to secure themselves one of these early drakes. Looks like they are.
Tristana has no TP now.
Track in the river.
Yeah, they are going to try and move here maybe, but Tristana has no TP, so she has to lifesteal the normal way, trying to get back from the minions in the wave. She also is dealing a good amount of damage onto Sim, but he does have teleport, so he can come back here without much problem. And the first ones to try and control the upper part of the river are the ones on Ember Foxes. On the bottom part, though, there's much more control on Zero Animosity, and maybe a flank angle here from the Annie.
Coming on in, going to be able to push back this Jarvan.
Oh wait, Franco.
I got safety. Franco gonna get stunned up. Does have the backup of his Galio. Z-Score forced to flash. Inferno Dan forced to flash, as piercing arrow is nearly the death of him, but his health bar is so low, he's out of all of his summoners. Slime, look at the connect with the glacial fissure. In comes Wonton, forced to use the ultimate to stay alive though. Eon Crystal and set the trap, comes in with the cataclysm, it turns it back, but Inferno Dan, one shot away from falling down, will finally be finished off by Sim. Z-Score trying to keep Eon Crystal alive, cannot do it for long enough. Albino Spino has TP'd into the fray, will cut down the carry, takes down Sim as well. That goes to Z-Score. Esam well about to claim first turret, and it's all gone wrong for the Ember Foxes.
They committed too much onto that play. They see the initial part where Franco had a really good stun onto Inferno Dan, and then he doesn't get connected by the ultimate from the Aphelios either. They don't have the burst damage to be able to take him down with the ultimate from the Galio, and it just meant that they were able to try and force double flashes plus an attempt there. But the main problem happens when they committed for the second time. Inferno Dan was far away enough, and then the commit onto the Kindred was beautiful. Jarvan ulti into stopping the Kindred from even jumping close to the Braum meant that there was no chance for them to really get the kill in that position onto the Aphelios. Took way too long, and that just bought time for Albino to come down, for everyone to really arrive and turn around the situation. And Samuel doesn't even care about the fight because he gets turrets, he gets minions, he gets really far ahead, and now he's a Tristana that is 151 CS to just the 108 from the Galio. She's such a big monster at this point compared to the Galio.
Second dragon will be secured. Rift Herald available as well, cannot be successfully cross-mapped. 2-0 for Albino Spino. A Rylai is completed for Z-Score's Annie, making that Tibbers just a walking slow field. Everything looking good and powerful for Zero Animosity here in game number 3. Comfortable at a 2k gold lead. The Rift Herald will be started on up by Ember Foxes, but with the waves being pushed in, Zero Animosity have something to say about this. It's down below 2k. Z-Score steps up, gets the stun on multiple members. There goes the Rift.
Oh, the damage.
What about the follow-up fight? Good front lining by Slime. Explosive cast knocks the Eon Crystal further in. Gets the Cataclysm on multiple members. Spino has arrived to the fight, but might be too late. Not connecting the needlework on.
Look at Franco.
Esam well is melted down by Franco. It's a double kill over to the Varus. Here comes Sim in from the back line. Albino Spino gets one, but Inferno Dan is already done for. He gets a trade back, but that's 2 for an ace. Zero Animosity are wiped off the map, and Ember Foxes are right back in this.
And that comes off of a fight for the Herald that also the side of Ember Foxes are able to get. And huge props to Franco. He played that fight so beautifully. He really has stepped up this series. He played it so well in the first 2 games, and now he's also playing super well this 3rd game, finding the angles to move around most of the fight. He sidestepped a lot of the attempts from the side of Zero Animosity, and then at the end being able to play up front really comfortably and just hitting everyone. This is the value from the attack speed barriers, by the way. When you're able to actually hit people, move around, and auto attack, you're just going to decimate everyone that comes through, and he did such a good job at that as well.
And Zero Animosity, they're just off time. Z-Score goes in before the rest of the team is available. Eon Crystal gets chunked out, can't get the Cataclysm down until nobody's able to follow up. Albino Spino is late. And they just go into the meat grinder one at a time. Franco playing that fight excellently is now impossibly wealthy on the Varus and pulls Ember Foxes back into a slight gold lead. This is not done for yet, TDS. This game could still go in either direction, and the tempo is in the side of Ember Foxes. They have control around this bot side, and they're looking to get themselves another tower.
For either side, and they are trying to get a little bit more gold in their favor. The fact that there's this amount of gold standing still that they can try and go for is always really good. I'm not sure if I like the fact that they are even sending Sin onto responding or trying to respond to Albino, because Albino can actually kill him, but it's also true that this is actually a magical damage dealing champion, so probably the only one that Sin can actually face here.
And can we do a stack check on the likes of
Kindred?
Yeah, Kindred, because I just got one on the invade. Would have gotten one in that fight too. They are at 4 stacks. Kindred online for the likes of Wanda.
Yeah, turn around the game.
Huge catch up there to be able to pick up kind of 2 stacks in that extended play. They get one off the kill, they get one off the camp. Sin getting collapsed on too. This is a TP being channeled.
It's 4 members up here.
They are full sending 4 members into the top side to kill this Galio. And hey, they did it.
Yeah, it worked. It's 4 members, Dave. They commit the kill there. Z-Score is going to try and get it here as well. But now with the Braum here as well, they actually want to keep on following here? They are forcing too much, so I don't think they're going to get the kill onto anyone on the side of Ember Foxes. They're just going to try and run away here. And Bernardan has a good angle.
Riffield gets thrown down. Wonton is caught. He goes down. Samuel with the insect play on the Tristana. Franco hops inside the Rift Herald, rides it to safety. What did I just watch?
Just like that, Rift Herald lost. Just like that, Rift Herald lost, because now they don't have the pushing power with it. And I'm surprised that they commit once again for that play. When the Galio is about to die, just leave him to die. I don't think you actually need to commit in that position there. And now Rift Herald going to get collapsed on here, going to be obtained by the Philios. And that just means that they need to find another good team fight on the side of Ember Foxes. Dragon will spawn in 30 seconds, and that may be another point where they will try and fight for. But I'm just curious why they're opting into such weird fights on both sides.
Yeah, a little bit of a messy fight there from both sides. I mean, a full send towards the top side from Zero Animosity. They end up getting fed a little bit more than they bargained for as the fight gets started on towards Z-Score, and they end up picking up Wonton as well as Sim for their commitment. Now set up for potential 3rd dragon take, and with a faint gold lead back into their favor, feeling like their double 80 carry comp is not quite online yet, but maybe they think that Albino Spino is strong enough for them to still be able to challenge.
I think it's a fair assumption to make. 1.5 items not necessarily bad. I think the main thing that you have to look for here is how strong Franco can be here in this position, and also how much space can they give to him, because really that's going to be the main difference maker. Plus also having the ultimates in your favor, the Kindred ultimate, the Gragas ultimate also to separate, can be quite ideal. And Z-Score has flash and ulti as well, by the way.
Doing their best to keep vision here. Z-Score and Eon Crystal could piece together a hell of an engage here. They send themselves into the bottom lane. So they do find a little bit of harassment here onto Sim. Samuel a little cut off from the rest of the team, as is Inferno Dan. Both these marksmen kind of marked and pushed away from the rest of the squad. But Ember Fox is unable to force the engage with the composition that they have for themselves. Yeah, jump into the wrong direction, still cut off from the rest of the team. But once again, Zero Animosity, they never need to fear an engage. It's so hard for Sim, Red Sword, and Slime to actually be able to pull the trigger and make the fight happen on their own terms.
Yeah, this is one of those instances when you're really missing having something like an Ornn or a Nautilus here, where they are just straightforward engagers, as, Gragas goes in, but cannot find anything. They want the dragon though. Oh,
Here comes a flash over the wall. Slime looking for the in-cage off of that Glacial Fissure, and he might have found it onto Eon Crystal. Z-Score responds with the addition of that Tibbers. The heal comes through onto the dragon. It ends up going over to Sim, but everybody locked inside of the Cataclysm is just a sitting duck for Inferno Dan's Moonlight Vigil. 3 kills go over to Inferno Dan in an instant, and Albino Spino looking to clean up another one here on the opposite side, trying to chase down Sim. Sim has been able to create the space. The smite went over to Ember Foxes. The fight barely favoring Zero Animosity.
Yeah, at the end, it's able to go on the side of Zero Animosity, but they do get the win. They are going to look for this Atacan as well, and there's nothing to really stop it from going their way unless the Kindred survives, and they take way too long to take it down. I think the biggest thing here has to be how they separated Franco for the fight. Once again, I think I'm making too much points onto Franco, but he really is the main defining factor for a lot of these fights for Ember Foxes, because if he is able to free hit, then it's really comfortable the fight how it goes for the side of Ember Foxes. But if he gets pushed away, if he gets forced into a bad spot, if he has to run away with the rest of the members, then he's not going to accomplish what the Barras can do at this point in the game, and it makes it so that they will lack a lot of damage in comparison.
Thornbound Atacan going the way of Zero Animosity. Get themselves another boatload of XP. They get themselves that permanent on-kill buff. They are going to lose some turrets for the time they dedicated for it, though. Bot lane going the way of Sim. I think well said about that last fight, TDS. Keeping Franco away from the team has been huge. Eon Crystal is going to lead the way with a Cataclysm. They think they can get on a Sim, but Justice Punch does a boatload. They flash forward. They think they can take this. Albino Spino chasing them the rest of the way, showing that they can. And Zero Animosity get one off the board.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm a fan of committing your flash to try and kill just the Galleon in that position. Oh, Samuel.
Right. Well, finding Red Sword forced to explosive cast to get away. And yeah, I mean, that's a flash blown from Eon Crystal that I don't think is going to mean anything. I think Sim...
That's an engaged tool down for Franco.
Oh, although maybe starting another fight here. If they can turn this into another fight, well, Sim is still down. That's one thing, but Z-Score going to be the first one to drop. Inferno Dan with a big flank. Red and white guns. Does not want to pull the trigger. Albino Spino on the opposite side of the map. And they're actually going to turn their pick onto Sim into getting picked as Z-Score is off the map.
I will say though, if your support gets picked when you kill the mid laner, I think that's more worth for your side because only your support died. But certainly you don't want to give those sort of picks away anyway. Like, you still don't want to give up advantages in any way possible in that situation. And it looked like that could have been more valuable for the side of Zero Animosity just because how they were going in. But at the end, they get collapsed on, they get stopped, and they get another kill in their favor for the side of Ember Foxes. Next dragon in 2 minutes, and that looks to be the next objective they want to go for 100%.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is they didn't have to expend a flash on the side of Ember Foxes to kill Z-Score. They did have to expend Eon Crystal's flash to kill Sim. So he's going to be without that for the next objective, but they're going to go for a Red Sword anyway. There goes Red Sword's flash, and they're going to try to chase him down anyway. Rinse and repeat, the exact same play. Anybody who side lanes against Albino Spino, you're getting a Cataclysm to the face. And Zero Animosity make another pick, this time as the Baron spawns.
Oh, Samuel is getting collapsed in here. He doesn't know, and he's going to get attacked on here by the Kindred bot. A little bit too much more damage on one side. Yeah, more damage on one side. Buster shot, he's fine. And I'm kind of glad that we're seeing Albino and also Aeon doing that sort of play this game around, because the previous game they didn't do it at all. And I think that could have worked out much better with a Yorick.
Zero Animosity just got 2 inner turrets for that failed pick on the eSIM well, by the way. That's 1,600 gold.
See, that's what happens when you commit too heavily and they don't get anything.
So much money.
It's funny because I feel like that was the sort of play that Zero Animosity pulled off in the previous game, and they lost a lot. This time around, they got a lot more because they were able to not only get a kill, but don't lose anyone and play around it much more effectively. And I think that was one of the biggest things that they were lacking in the previous game. This time around, finding way more value. But they are the first to the dragon, and they want to try and force their fight here.
Yeah, I mean, Ember Fox is just feeling uncomfortable without the engaged tools that so many League of Legends comps are built around. They want to be able to go and make picks on the eSIM well, but they can't do it. He's too mobile. He's too for any forces of escape. But here comes another fight. This time, Animosity them and their composition can do a little bit more in that kind of situation. Eon Crystal's already fallen down, but look at that needlework. Albino Spino threads a needle through 3 members and nearly kills them all. Esem well now looking for resets. Trades 1-for-1 with Franco. Sim and Slime, the last 2 hanging out alive, and they might have to call this one quits, but they are still hanging around. For what reason, I don't know. This dragon belongs to Zero Animosity. Slime goes for the Miracle Winter's Bite. It does not connect.
They didn't even have a smite. It was all just a dream and a hope from Slime there to try and get it. And they're pinging the Baron. They want to take it down at this point of the game. I will say a lot of that fight comes down to the Gwen value from the Mist. Because the Gwen wasn't touched for a lot of it. And it was because the AD carries Franco and Wanton could not touch the Gwen at all, and all that happened during that fight. The Mist just denying so much damage, having to force repositioning from both members, and then just killing the targets that were really, really low. They're disengaging. Yeah,
they can't do it in time. I mean, it would have been tight. Sim TP's up, could have come in, could have taunted, could have slowed them down a little bit more. And of course, Wonton was approaching, so Zero Animosity choose to play it safer. Now going to have their vision cleared on away. Eon Crystal still hanging out. They're going to start this. They did not catch that last ward behind the Baron. So Zero Animosity are aware of this the whole way through.
Yeah, they're just waiting for the other members to be able to be close by and find a good angle. They're also trying to play around their vision because they have good vision around this area, not necessarily inside of the Baron buff, but around the area of the jungle, knowing where some of the members are moving, and that way they can try and collapse on them in case they go too far forward.
Baron, the objective of the day. Both teams may begin their dances once again. Side laning, Albino Spino 6-1 and 8. A tremendous performance on this Gwen, showing that this tactic can work from Zero Animosity despite the Yorick in game number 2. And
I think the problem was more the Sion than the Yorick now that I'm looking at it more.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly felt that way. The Sion is the response to stacked up so much health, having a much better time into the Galio, but also, I mean, being able to punish the Galio so effectively, pairing up with Eon Crystal, making back-to-back plays in the side lanes where they kill off whoever is laying against the Gwen. Put that kill gold into the Gwen, put a lot more solo gold of waves and experience into the Gwen, putting solo gold from turrets into the Gwen. And it's just catapulted Albino Spino into such a dominant position. And Ember Foxes, they bite for the same trick multiple times, and they pay the price for it.
Yeah, and playing a carry that is essentially immobile, because one of the biggest problems of the Varus is always having to try and step up by himself, having to outplay the people with his movement, and not having a lot of tools to escape. Against a champion like the Wen and a Jarvan, it's going to be extremely scary, and it's going to be extremely difficult to make it work out as much as possible. And it's shown in this game that even though Franco has been having a great time trying to kill people and being the main factor of the team, 7-2 even, it's just simply really difficult for him to step up, because if not, he gets bursted out.
And it's a team composition for Ember Foxes that really struggles from behind. If you don't have engage tools, if you need to be the ones responding to the engage, you would much rather be to these objectives first, and that is a hard ask when you are behind on the map. And Zero Animosity, they're just
going down.
Baron 2-man. Too late with a blue ward, but it's too little, it's too late. It's Baron to Zero Animosity.
And it's Gwen now pushing with Baron buff in the side lane. That's going to be scary. And also a Tristana as well. You have 2 champions that destroy side lanes and turrets really quickly. Being able to push with Baron buff at this point in the game, it's going to be really difficult for your team, as maybe a collapse here into Albino could turn around the situation.
Albino could maybe 1v2.
Remember what happened last time?
Challenge right up in the face of Wonton. Forces out the ultimate, throws out one more needlework. It's a 1 versus 4, and Albino Spino has flashed himself out to safety while his team wreaks havoc in the base. In the face of the Baron buff, you can't afford that kind of time wasted. Zero Animosity wipe away 2 inhibitors.
Yeah, you either get the kill or you don't go for it, and it didn't work out in any way, as they're trying to commit here, but they're just quickly to escape, and Red Award may just die.
Inferno Dan, tons of damage output, takes down 1, takes down 2. Esem well off the back of the reset, dancing through the rest of the fight, and it will be a front-to-back clean sweep from Zero Animosity. A well-played fight from both teams, but it will be ZA coming out on top. No hard feelings, Zero Animosity.
They finally did it. They took a huge road in front of them to be able to arrive to this point. But finally, they get their first win of the ACL. They keep themselves alive. They do a really good job at that. And on the back of being able to turn around such a disastrous situation in the previous game, because I agree, Albino played really good, but I think he played really great the previous 2 games. But Inferno, down to me, really had a turnaround game 3, because the first 2 games were really difficult. This one, he steps up, does a lot of damage, plays it really well, provides for the team, and overall, really important turnaround game 3 for the side of Zero Animosity.
Let's go Zero Animosity. Congratulations to this crew coming up with their first series win. And moving on, they will face Sin Eternal Season tomorrow. Mint Gaming with a 2-1 win from 5th seed in the Spirit Blossom Akali Decider group will qualify for playoffs, 9th through 12th seed. Congratulations to Mint Gaming. And welcome to the ACL playoffs. It will now be Zero Animosity versus Sin Eternal Season to determine who will be the other qualifier from this group.
I really didn't think that was going to be the decider for this group, but it's going to be an exciting one anyway. It's going to be a really good matchup anyway. And Sin already, these 2 teams already went 2-1. So there's a good chance that we may see a revenge from the side of Zero Animosity and turn it around this time around.
Yeah, I mean, they pulled it together here a little bit more. They talked to us before the series tonight. They got off to a little bit of a slow start. They had to make some last-minute changes, both to their schedule and to their starting lineup. But they feel like they're getting back into groove here, and this win might be what it takes to put them back on the right track.
Yeah, but it's going to be a little bit of time before we get to see that, and a little bit of time, of course, I'm saying tomorrow, because they play again tomorrow against their next matchup, and that's going to be the last one before we actually go into playoffs, which is exciting, but a little bit bittersweet at the same time.
And it is a rematch of the first round of this bracket, where Sin Eternal Season won 2-1 in a 3-game series against Zero Animosity. I think very likely that will be the featured game on the Salt Mine tomorrow. Stay tuned. We will announce shortly. But we talked about this in advance before. I think they will likely be Zero Animosity versus Sin Eternal Season on Salt Mine. And it will be,
unless every game gets canceled, that should be what happens.
Yeah, unless there's reschedules and stuff, I think. And then it will be Komodo versus Weber State, I think, is the most likely matchup on this stream. As, by the way, Milk Esports 2-0 over Weber. Milk Esports qualifies for the ACL playoffs. Congratulations to them.
Makes sense. I think I'm excited to see whatever game we end up seeing, right? Because I liked seeing the chance to revisit some of these teams, because if we end up seeing the Weber Komodo, we will see Weber for a second time, and we can get a chance to see how they are doing, how they improved, how they not improved, or how much they've been impacted by the recent games that they've lost. And also, if we end up going to the back-to-back with Zero Animosity, could be a nice story to see the revenge from them against Susan. So whatever game we end up seeing, there's a good chance we see some teams once again, and that can turn around into a really nice setup for us as well, and for Southland.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. We're going to have some banger matches tomorrow. We will have a quick interview here with Eon Crystal after a short break. So we're going to send it to that break, pull in Eon Crystal, talk to him, and then we'll close out for the night. So everybody stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Awake to my voice and hear the call within. Embrace
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's stream of the ACL, where we are joined by the victorious Eon Crystal of Zero Animosity. You guys have won 2-1. You will stay alive in the ACL, and you will play against Sin Eternal Season for spot in playoffs tomorrow.
Yay.
Congrats on the win tonight, Eon Crystal.
Thank you. It was a rough
Thanks so
game.
much for
I'm not gonna
joining us
lie.
here. Yeah, I was saying, close series, close 3 games, a 55-minute banger to start off in game number 1. Let's talk about that one a little bit, if that's still anywhere in your memory and hasn't been completely deleted.
That was a fresh one. Let me tell you, that was the longest game I think I've had in my life.
Yeah. So how does the game end up going 55 minutes, and how does the team stay organized as it starts to go later and later and things start to break down a little more?
I would say like our stage nerves get to us a lot during our first games because we get very nervous and hesitant. So it's like games tend to last a lot longer because we're just hesitating on like things that we should be doing that we know we should be doing in practice already.
Yeah, I think that's fair, especially because like there was a point where you guys had Baron and Elder, and usually that should be a combo to finish the game off. But certainly there was a lot more patience or a little bit of fear. Actually, I would say fear. I'm kind of curious if that if there was a fear factor for today, because obviously it was an elimination match, and technically speaking, you guys didn't win at all until this point. So I'm kind of curious if that did play a factor in that sort of like more like contained approach.
I do think that it does play like a small factor as well, because we're like after losing so many games and so many series in a row, like it's just like a lot of things that we thought were good just turns bad by results based. So like we're just like overall more scared to try and make those same plays happen, even though we know like they're good in general.
Makes sense. I talked to the coach a little bit earlier today, and by the way, that's their coach's name. I'm not forgetting anybody's name here.
Yes, it is.
He talked about he talked about your guys' scrim schedule a lot. Inside, you guys got off to a little bit of a rockier start this split, maybe some disruptions to your schedule, some last minute changes to the roster. You feel like now with a series win under your belt, you guys are kind of starting to get your feet under yourselves a little bit more, and this is a bit of a turning point, or do you feel like you're still getting everything adjusted as you look to compete a little bit further?
I would say there's always stuff that we need to still adjust, but I do think that with this win under our belt, we are going to take this as far as we can, because this is a really big win for us in like everything department for the team.
Sure, and I think that's important because we were mentioning this, like having a big lose streak is nothing compared to having a big win streak, and that's how you have to write these sort of situations. And it's not like your lose streaks were bad things, because like going back in the schedule, it was a lot of 2-1s. Like you guys were doing a good job at taking one game, but it was just closing that really was affecting your win rate at the end. So I'm kind of curious if that's also something that you guys have tried and prepped around, or if you think that that's something that you can prepare for or improve on, because a lot of the times like it's easier to say like, yeah, closing games, that's what you're lacking. But when you actually have to put that into play, it becomes more difficult. And I'm kind of curious if that's something you've been trying to train, practice, or change up in the continuation of the matches.
I think that definitely will be something that we will be looking forward to, especially with like our coach like being back from his important business trip, which is something that he's going to really help us grow on. And I think this is something that like I would say our early mid games are usually pretty sound, and so like as long as we are a little bit more coordinated and more synergized together, I do think like we can take this really, really far as a team.
Very good, very good. Well, any thoughts on tomorrow's matchup against Sin Eternal Season? I know you guys played up against each other in the first round. It was a 2-1 for Sin. Any thoughts on what you could improve on from your first meeting and what you're looking for in the second?
I would say this time it's going to be a 2-1. You know, I love my friends, but I'm just saying I need this win more than they do, you know? I kind of need this one.
Fair enough.
Nothing against them. I love them. I need this one, though, you know?
All right. Well, that's a great philosophy. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Crystal, anybody you want to shout out? Anything you want to say before we close out the stream for the night?
Shout out RetroZing. I love that guy, kind of. I love all my teammates, and I really enjoy my coach when he's around. Yeah, that's really it.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Ian Crystal. Appreciate it as always. Congrats on the win. Looking forward to seeing how you guys do tomorrow. Like I called out, stay tuned, everybody. Tomorrow will be, or I guess return tuned tomorrow, as we will have another set of final qualifying series for the playoffs. We will eliminate 4 more teams, and we will qualify 4 final teams for playoffs. Determine which games are going to be on here, which are on the salt mine, and which are elsewhere very shortly. So stay tuned to the Aegis Discord for which matches will be streamed where. For now, for myself, from TDS, and from Caddy on production, thank you all for hanging out with us. Thank you once again to our sponsors over there at Zen Market, and we will see you guys next time.
Bro, just use Zen Market.